Some thoughts feel like yours, until they don't. This isn't just a list, it's a descent through hidden mental loops from level 1 to the one no mind escapes, level 100. The deeper you go, the more familiar it feels, like you've been here before but can't remember when. Drift off gently if your thoughts let you. Let's start with level 1. Imagine yourself lying in a quiet room, watching thoughts drift through your mind like clouds, each one a silent fork in a hidden road. The idea of the forgotten forking thought is almost invisible in the background of your daily life, a gentle but unending process. For every thought you choose to follow, there are thousands more that quietly vanish, never spoken, never acted upon, slipping away with only the faintest ripple. The you that wondered, "What if?" is silenced the moment you pick a path, and with each choice, whole versions of yourself are quietly set aside, like books left unread on an endless shelf. Sometimes you sense it in small ways, a moment of hesitation before a decision, a sudden rush of possible futures just before sleep. You may notice it when a memory feels faded or incomplete, as if part of you is missing. Yet these silenced versions are not dramatic. They are gentle echoes, softening the edges of who you become. Throughout history, philosophers and poets have tried to capture this feeling. In ancient Athens, thinkers wandered through olive groves, musing on the thousands of lives they could have led, comforted and unsettled by the thought that even a simple walk down a different street could have changed everything. The rhythm of their lives, like yours, was shaped by an endless branching of possible selves, most of whom would remain forever unnamed. Even today, in the routine of daily life, choosing tea or coffee, pausing at a doorway, you carry the silent weight of all the futures you'll never know. The mystery of the forgotten forking thought is that it never asks for attention, yet it shapes everything quietly, one gentle, unchosen moment at a time. In the gentle quiet of an ordinary evening, imagine yourself reaching for a cup of water, your fingers curling around the handle before you're even aware of thirst. For a moment, it feels as if the action simply happened, an echo that rose from somewhere beneath words before your conscious mind caught up. This is not unusual. In fact, much of daily life unfolds this way: a walk across a tiled floor, a hand lifted to brush away a strand of hair, footsteps unconsciously matching the rhythm of a clock ticking in another room. If you pause and try to find the exact moment when a decision begins, the line grows hazy, as if you are peering through fog. Researchers once asked people to report precisely when they decided to move. Brain scans, though, showed activity sparking well before anyone noticed the urge. It is as if some quieter part of the self has already whispered the plan, setting everything in motion before the rest of you catches up, leaving the conscious mind to narrate a story it did not actually write. Imagine yourself, then, as a passenger on a gentle current. The surface ripples with explanations, but the depths below are silent and steady, guiding you with movements that feel your own, though you never heard the command. Yet this quiet choreography is not unsettling. It is simply the rhythm of our lives, a pattern repeated in kitchens, classrooms, and city streets. Everywhere a mind claims ownership of the smallest motion. As you listen, you might notice these subtle echoes: the breath you take before you realize you needed air, the gentle tap of a finger that seems to move itself. Like a stone skipping across still water, each movement is both cause and consequence, an intention heard only after it has already begun. Imagine yourself moving through your day, noticing a heaviness in your chest, a familiar shadow that arrives with certain memories or places. Now, consider the quiet possibility that this feeling did not start with you. In countless families across centuries, grief moved silently, shifting from mother to child, father to son, not as words or stories, but as a subtle echo in the rhythm of daily life. Perhaps your own sadness is a faint thread, woven by hands you never met, echoing across generations in moments of stillness. In the dim light of an old home, Dust drifting in slow spirals. You might find a box of letters or a faded photograph. The paper carries a scent of time past. The ink records worries and hopes, and sometimes pain that was never spoken aloud. Long before the modern world named these feelings, people lived with grief as a background note, shaping the way they held their children, the way they responded to sorrow or fear. Imagine the small gestures, how a parent's quiet sigh, a certain way of holding their jaw, or the gentle tracing of a thumb over a scar became part of a child's sense of self. These rituals, repeated and unexamined, carried emotion forward. Scientists now speak of epigenetics, of chemical marks left on our DNA by the lives of those before us. But even without the language of science, you might notice how family stories, or even silences, seem to shape your reactions. Imagine walking the same path your ancestors once did, feeling their footsteps in your own. Their unfinished sadness lingers, a gentle tide, shaping the shores of your heart in ways both mysterious and deeply familiar. Imagine yourself waking in the quiet hush of early morning before your mind has fully decided who you'll be today. You stretch, perhaps yawn, and somewhere beneath that first conscious thought, long before you remember your plans, a cascade of tiny signals ripples through your cells. The DNA prediction paradox asks a disquieting question. What if the goals you call your own are actually ancient echoes, pre-scripted into the molecules that built your ancestors? Not fate in the cosmic sense, but a kind of invisible choreography written by strands of code far older than your childhood dreams. Picture a young artisan in a medieval town, brushing wood shavings from his workbench as sunlight filters in. He believes his desire to master his craft is his own, shaped by choices, hopes, maybe a bit of rivalry with his neighbor. Yet scientists now know that our preferences, our hungers, even our sense of purpose, are shaped by chemical signals, subtle pulses of dopamine, and shifts in serotonin, each influenced by genes passed down from countless unknown relatives. The artisan's urge to excel, to carve a pattern just so, could be the distant echo of survival traits, selected over generations and replayed through his fingertips. The paradox deepens with modern discoveries. When researchers observed families whose members pursued eerily similar paths, doctors birthing doctors, farmers cultivating fields side by side, they wondered, how much is learned and how much is inscribed? Some genes seem to fire only in certain contexts, triggered by a whiff of pine, a sudden danger, or the patient repetition of daily chores. Like the rhythm of a song you can't quite remember, your goals may not be born in a single moment of inspiration, but woven through daily routines, reinforced with every sunrise and meal. Think of how a community's shared rituals, the baking of bread, the telling of stories, the laying of bricks, mirror the repetitive patterns hidden in their DNA. It's easy to believe you choose your own path, guided by conscious will. Yet, as you settle deeper into the familiar rhythm of your days, it becomes harder to distinguish true intention from ancient programming. Even as you listen, perhaps drifting towards sleep, consider this gentle uncertainty. The very act of planning for tomorrow might just be the latest note in a melody your ancestors started long before you could ever call it your own. Imagine yourself sitting quietly, lost in a memory so vivid it seems anchored to the deepest corner of your past. The sound of rain against the window, the hush of voices just outside, the pattern of light across a worn tabletop, each detail returns with a kind of gentle authority. Yet, there's something odd about this memory. Perhaps it is the way the scene drifts, or the sense that if you look too closely, it softens around the edges. Sometimes, we grieve over these moments, carrying regret or nostalgia for events our minds have quietly stitched together from fragments, stories, and borrowed dreams. Neuroscience shows that memory isn't a recording, but a reweaving. Each recall is a quiet reconstruction, blending truth with suggestion and imagination. One study had people recall being lost in a shopping mall as a child, a story never lived, but described so persuasively that many believed it had happened. They felt emotions, fear, embarrassment, even tears, over events that were never real. Their bodies reacted as if that invented past had been carved into the fabric of their lives. It happens more than you might think. Sometimes a scent, a song, or a photograph gently nudges your mind to build something familiar out of scattered details. This can shape who you believe you are. The memories you revisit become threads in your personal tapestry, no matter how accurately they reflect what was. There is comfort in this. The mind's gentle errors let us soften old hurts, revise old wounds, and even invent gentle joys. As you listen tonight, you may find yourself drifting into scenes you're sure you remember. Perhaps not all of them truly happened, but each one holds a kind of truth, emotion, needing only a story to rest within. Imagine yourself drifting through an old library at dusk, shelves stretching into gentle darkness. Each book is a memory, a moment you once lived, a page you sometimes reach for on quiet evenings. But every time you revisit a memory, it does not remain unchanged. Instead, with each recollection, details subtly shift. The warmth of a light, the sound of a voice, the words someone said. Over years, these small changes accumulate, until the stories you tell yourself become quietly unfamiliar. You do not notice the edits as they happen. Memories feel honest, even when they grow softer, or quietly rearrange themselves. The rhythm of daily life means we often recall the same moments, smoothing the past to fit our present shape. Like a scribe updating an old manuscript, your mind blends what was, what you wish had been, and what you can most comfortably remember. Historians and psychologists have noticed this gentle drift, where even vivid memories slowly take on the tint of later years. A childhood afternoon, retold 100 times, may become something different from the day you once lived. Imagine, then, that over decades, you become the keeper of an evolving archive. Eventually, you might feel like a stranger in your own story, walking through scenes that seem familiar yet altered. The scent of rain on an old street, a half-remembered voice, a gesture you recall, each gently distorted, quietly shaping the biography you carry forward. In this way, the archive's self-distortion is never a sharp break, but a soft rewriting, a calm and endless reauthoring of who you quietly become. Imagine yourself waking each morning to the same faint creak of floorboards, the steady drip of water in a nearby pipe, sunlight falling just so across a quiet room. At first, these small patterns catch your attention, an unfamiliar sound, a scent you cannot name, the way dust moves in a shaft of light. But, day by day, the mind weaves a gentle cocoon of familiarity. What was once striking becomes the rhythm of your hours, repeated until its edges soften and its meaning fades into the gentle hum of daily life. Across cultures and centuries, the extraordinary is quietly folded into routine. Consider the city dweller who no longer glances upward at towering skyscrapers, or the villager whose ancient mountain backdrop has become a simple outline against the morning sky. Even great inventions, electric light, the music of distant voices carried by invisible waves, lose their shimmer. The miracle becomes wallpaper, a background so constant it's barely seen. You might remember a childhood wonder, a new taste or sight that once filled a whole afternoon with questions. But time passes, and awe, too, becomes a companion that slips quietly away. The world's patterns repeat, footsteps echoing down familiar streets, the gentle clink of dishes after supper, the soft routine of your own breath, until you almost forget there was a time when each was new. Yet within this loop of normalcy, comfort grows. The ordinary, repeated, and unremarkable offers a quiet foundation. Beneath it all, traces of old miracles remain, woven deep into the fabric of daily life. You need only pause, sometimes, to hear the faint echo of awe in the quiet rhythm of another day. Imagine yourself preparing for another ordinary day. You reach for the familiar expressions, the practiced tone of voice, the small gestures that fit the roles you play. You may not remember exactly when you started wearing this particular mask, only that over time, it became easier to let it settle onto your features than to challenge its shape. The face you show the world is comfortable, even if it feels slightly distant, like a reflection in an old mirror, familiar, but never quite belonging to you. Across history, people have worn many masks, both literal and unseen. In medieval towns, a merchant would bow and greet his customers with a rehearsed cheerfulness, saving his tiredness for moments alone by candlelight. At grand banquets, nobles laughed politely, concealing doubts or boredom beneath the weight of courtly etiquette. Imagine the daily repetition, the same phrases, the same smiles, so carefully constructed that eventually the line between pretense and authenticity blurs. Over the years, the mask does not simply hide the true self, it shapes it. A parent acts brave for their child, and in time, courage becomes a habit. An apprentice mimics their master's calm patience, and the echo of imitation slowly settles into reality. The act and the actor merge until you cannot say which came first. Imagine the comfort of routine, the steady rhythm of expectation. Even in solitude, the mask remains, offering a kind of protection, but also a quiet mystery. Who are you beneath the performance? Or perhaps the performance is all that remains. Imagine yourself sitting quietly in a dim room, the world hushed except for the soft rhythm of your breath. You decide, just for a moment, to be fully present, to watch your thoughts, to sense every flicker of feeling as it passes. As you turn inward, a strange sensation arises. The more closely you observe yourself, the less solid you seem. Thoughts that once felt anchored begin to slip away, as if the act of looking at your own mind turns it into fog. The vanishing observer self is a paradox you may have experienced in the gentle edges of sleep, in meditation, or in those drifting seconds when you try to catch yourself simply being. This isn't just a philosophical puzzle. It's a phenomenon that artists, monks, and scientists have all tried to capture. Ancient texts describe the self as an illusion, a candle flame flickering in the wind. Modern neuroscience notes how self-awareness is a moving target, built from signals in the brain that dissolve the moment you try to pin them down. Imagine a painter at work, lost in the flow of brushstrokes, only to stumble when she pauses to consider, "Am I painting well?" The awareness that was effortless a moment ago now feels fragile, exposed, like stepping onto ice that thins as you look for its center. In daily life, the paradox plays out quietly. You try to be mindful, to live in the present, but the very effort to be present can make the experience slip through your fingers. The rhythm of everyday existence, the slow pouring of tea, the warmth of sunlight, the steady ticking of a clock, anchors you in the moment only as long as you don't look too closely. Watch yourself living, and the feeling of being someone seems to evaporate, leaving only the act of watching itself. As you drift, you might notice this subtle dance, awareness blooming, then folding in on itself, dissolving like a dream that knows it's a dream. The vanishing observer self isn't a flaw, but a quiet invitation. It asks you to rest in the gentle flow of experience, not gripping too tightly, not trying to catch yourself in the act of existing. Just as dreams fade when questioned, the self softens when you try to hold it. Perhaps it's in this soft, effortless noticing that you finally glimpse what it means to truly be present, by letting go of the watcher and simply allowing the moment to unfold. Imagine yourself waking in the quiet hours before dawn, the house thick with silence and the gentle hush of your own breathing. Sometimes, before the world stirs, the mind drifts to roads not taken, a different city, a conversation you never had, a career you once imagined. These unlived lives are like faint outlines at the edge of vision, impossible to grasp, yet shaping the way you see the world you inhabit now. Psychologists say regrets are not just about what was lost, but what never truly existed. Studies have found that people's most persistent regrets are rarely about things they did, but about paths they never dared to follow. The unfinished symphony, the unspoken confession, the move to a distant place, all linger as ghostly presences, gently steering decisions long after the original moment has faded. Your mind loops quietly through these imagined histories, rehearsing and revising, as if a part of you is still living them in the shadows. Picture a medieval scholar, candle flickering low, pondering a life in distant lands, or a farmer, pausing at dusk, thinking of the trade he never learned. Their regrets, too, were quiet companions, shaping not only mood, but the subtle choices made each day. These echoes of possibility, though never made real, become signposts, warnings, sometimes even sources of comfort, reminders that every path taken closes countless others. In this gentle twilight between memory and hope, you carry not only the story of what happened, but also the silent weight of everything that might have been. The rhythm of your days is set not just by footsteps you took, but by those you only ever dreamed of. As you listen, let your mind drift among those phantom branches, knowing that even the unlived can leave a tender mark upon the present. Imagine yourself wandering a quiet corridor, evening light spilling softly along the floor, and just ahead stands a single closed door. You have passed many doors before, some flung open with ease, others creaked on uncertain hinges, but this one you leave untouched, perhaps out of uncertainty, perhaps out of habit. It sits quietly at the edge of your attention, yet the possibility behind it never quite fades. The locked door reaction lingers in the mind not as a regret or a longing, but as a subtle pressure, gently shaping the rhythm of your days. In time, you may find your choices echoing around that unopened possibility. The jobs you take, the friendships you nurture, even the quiet rituals of your morning routine, all subtly guided by a path you never set foot on. Historians sometimes remark that entire eras were defined not by what people dared to do, but by what they hesitated to try. The roads unbuilt, the treaties unsigned, the letters never sent. So too, in your own life, a single closed door can become an anchor for the self you never became. You might notice it in the way you avoid certain streets, or in the questions you never ask. Over years, the unopened door becomes a quiet motif in your memory, gently influencing which futures feel possible and which you quietly rule out. The locked door reaction is not about dramatic missed chances, but the calm, subtle shaping of your days by what remains unexplored. In the end, it is the softest boundaries that hold the strongest sway, quietly guiding the shape of your life's unfolding story. Imagine yourself adrift in a gentle dream, surrounded by familiar faces and places that shift with every heartbeat. You turn a corner, greet an old friend, choose to climb a staircase, or linger in a garden blooming with colors you've never seen while awake. In the dream, each action feels like your own, each word spoken as if plucked deliberately from your thoughts. Yet when morning comes, you realize none of these choices were truly yours. You did not decide who appeared, where to walk, what to say, or when to awaken. The dream unfurled itself, quietly and completely, without your conscious hand on the tiller. Waking life, too, is thick with choices that seem to arise from nowhere. You pick a seat by the window, reach for a book you haven't thought of in years, follow a path home, without remembering why you turned left instead of right. Sometimes, the decision feels immediate, as if you are steering your own story. But, like dreams, these moments often come and go on currents below awareness. Decisions made by quiet layers of the mind, unnoticed until you're already living their result. Imagine the rhythm of ordinary days, a favorite meal chosen with no memory of craving, a song played again and again simply because it feels right. In the gentle blur between sleep and waking, the difference between choosing and drifting blurs as well. Perhaps the mind, ever eager to explain, invents reasons for choices that arrived long before explanation was needed. So as you settle into the quiet rhythm of evening, Consider how many moments are gentle illusions, choices that feel deliberate but float by like dreams, already decided before you notice the turning. Imagine yourself in a quiet room at night holding a small flashlight. You shine it across the walls, watching the beam reveal details you'd missed in daylight. The grain of old wood, the curve of a forgotten chair, dust motes floating in slow, dreamlike spirals. You can illuminate almost anything within the room's boundaries, but if you turn the flashlight toward itself, you find only shadows, a gentle paradox that lingers. No matter how you angle the light, the bulb cannot reveal its own nature. For centuries, philosophers and poets have returned to this puzzle, quietly asking what it means to truly know oneself. Imagine ancient scholars in candlelit studies, pondering whether the mind can ever fully understand its own depths. Each thought, each insight, is like shining the beam outward, gathering impressions, memories, feelings. Yet whenever you try to turn inward, to see the source of thought with the same clarity, the view grows hazy, shifting at the edges, always just out of reach. Daily life echoes this gentle mystery. When you react to a feeling, you can name it: anger, hope, curiosity. But the instant you search for the source, the sensation dissolves, like fog under a rising sun. Imagine all the small moments where you try to pin down exactly who you are, and instead find only layers of questions. The flashlight cannot see itself. It simply illuminates everything else, quietly, patiently, through the slow unfolding of night. Imagine yourself standing before a blank canvas, the scent of fresh paper hanging in the air, your mind filled with the quiet hope of a new beginning. You might tell yourself this is a clean slate, a pure moment untouched by anything that came before. But as your hand moves, there's a faint tremor, an old habit, a remembered gesture, a rhythm learned from past attempts. This is the clean slate contamination, the gentle, unavoidable truth that every fresh start still carries the fingerprints of who you've been. Consider a scribe in a medieval scriptorium, laboring under flickering candlelight. Each time he begins a new manuscript, he carefully scrapes the parchment, hoping to erase the last gained story. Yet the old ink leaves faint traces, and his fingers automatically curl around the quill as they always have. Even his thoughts, what he chooses to write, how he shapes each letter, bear the residue of all he's copied before. No matter how new the project, the echoes of yesterday quietly guide his hand. This paradox unfolds quietly in daily life. You move to a new city, change careers, or simply try to break a small habit. At first, the world seems wide open, unmarked, but gradually, the past seeps in. The way you greet strangers, the kinds of streets you're drawn to, the routines you unconsciously rebuild. The clean slate is never truly blank. It's gently colored by your old preferences, shaped by every lesson, mistake, and joy you've carried with you. Even as you listen now, perhaps imagining your own moments of starting again, notice the soft persistence of memory, the way a scent, a sound, or a thought can bring yesterday's self quietly into the present. The clean slate contamination isn't a flaw. It's a reminder that beginnings and endings are always intertwined. Like footprints in soft earth, your past travels with you, not as a burden, but as a subtle guide, coloring each new attempt with its own quiet wisdom. Imagine yourself walking along a quiet path at dusk, shadows stretching long, and the world slipping into a muted hush. As you notice the sway of leaves, the distant sound of water, it all feels immediate, yet science quietly insists you're living just out of sync. Every moment you experience, every image and sensation, has already unfolded before your mind is allowed to see it. Consciousness is not a live broadcast, but a highlight reel played a split second after the actual event. Neuroscientists have studied this strange delay, tracing the milliseconds it takes for signals to travel from eye to brain, then for the brain to assemble a coherent picture. It means that by the time you register a bird in flight or the warmth of sunlight on your hand, those things have already shifted, changed, perhaps even vanished. The world is never quite as it seems, always just slightly behind the true present, like a memory retold rather than a reality unfolding. Consider a candlelit dinner centuries ago, the gentle echo of laughter in a medieval hall. Even then, every gesture and glance was filtered through the same subtle lag, a delay so brief it goes unnoticed, but so profound it means you are forever watching your life on a momentary delay. Athletes and musicians sometimes sense this, describing time stretching and snapping back, reality always a beat behind intention. This gentle illusion creates a seamless flow, a comforting rhythm that lets you believe in the present as you drift into sleep. Tonight, as you settle into the quiet of your room, let the thought settle. You are watching a story already written, replayed in your mind's private cinema, the lines and colors gently fading into dream. The true present remains always just beyond reach, a secret kept by your own mind. Imagine yourself rising each morning to the gentle sound of an alarm, moving through the same sequence of steps, the brush of your teeth, the quiet splash of water, the familiar warmth of a favorite mug. These small rituals form the structure of daily life, a pattern so steady it almost vanishes from awareness. The routine-based disappearance is not sudden, nor is it unsettling. It happens softly, like a gentle mist settling over the same stretch of ground each day. The more you repeat a task, the less likely you are to recall any single instance. Even a week later, it's difficult to distinguish one quiet breakfast from another, as if each day has blended into the next. Historians studying old diaries notice this too. Their pages thicken with repetition, the words growing sparser as routines settle in. What once felt new becomes nearly invisible, lost in the soft blur of habit. People in every era have experienced this subtle vanishing. The weaver at her loom, the clerk tallying accounts, the child tracing the same path to school each morning. Over time, the details slip away, leaving only the faintest traces behind. You may catch a glimpse of this phenomenon when you try to recall the past week and find the days melting into a quiet sameness. The comfort of routine, while soothing, gently erases the uniqueness of each moment. In the end, the more faithfully you follow your daily rhythms, the more your life becomes a series of gentle, invisible steps, quietly fading into the soft background of memory, leaving you with only the subtle outline of days once lived. Imagine yourself entering a room filled with faces, voices, and shifting light. Among them, there is one presence, or perhaps several, who seem to absorb the air without returning it. You speak, but your words feel like echoes lost in a vast chamber. Your smile meets a gaze that drifts past, uninterested, like a reflection in a darkened glass. It is not that your worth has changed in that moment, but something subtle shifts within you, a quiet fading, as if a vital part of yourself goes unseen. This feeling, so familiar to many, is not born from truth, but from reflection, or the absence of it. When others mirror back our presence, our laughter, our ideas, we feel grounded, known, and valued. But when the mirror is blank, cold, or indifferent, it can leave a hollow space where confidence once lived. The room, once full, feels suddenly empty. You may not hear harsh words or judgment, but the silence between signals a quiet dismissal, a shrinking of your own light. Throughout history and across cultures, people have learned this lesson in subtle ways, in classrooms, marketplaces, and gatherings both large and small. The heart senses what the eyes do not always say aloud, that some connections nurture and reflect our worth, while others seem to drain it away, leaving a shadow behind. Imagine yourself now in those moments of stillness, feeling the pull of this invisible mirror, and know that the reflection is not your truth, but a fleeting shadow cast by absence. Even in these moments, your worth remains whole, waiting patiently to be seen again, in mirrors that reflect back all you truly are. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a vast, quiet lake just before dawn, the surface smooth and reflective like glass. You look into this still water, hoping to see your own image clearly, yet the reflection shimmers and shifts with every passing ripple. Memory is much like this lake, sometimes steady, sometimes disturbed, offering glimpses of yourself that are never quite whole. You remember watching yourself grow, piece by piece, through moments stitched together by the fragile thread of recollection. But the witness to these memories was never perfect. Often biased, sometimes absent, it selected certain scenes while neglecting others. Imagine a childhood birthday, the laughter around a worn wooden table, the scent of baked bread thick in the air. Yet the shadows in the corners remain vague, details lost like footprints washed away by time. This partial witness shapes the story you tell yourself, the version of your life that feels familiar but is always incomplete. Even the most vivid memories can be deceptive. Like an old painting restored repeatedly, some colors fade, others brighten unnaturally, changing the image. The mind fills gaps with assumptions or emotions from the present, reshaping the past in subtle, almost invisible ways. Imagine the quiet solitude of these inner reflections, where certainty is elusive and the self is both observer and observed, forever caught in the delicate tension between what was and what is remembered. Imagine yourself standing before a mirror, the glass cool and clear, reflecting a familiar face back at you. Yet, this reflection is a subtle trick, a reversed version, a flipped image that's never quite the true you. This is the essence of the mirror shift identity drift, the paradox that every time you meet yourself, you encounter only a variant, a shadow turned sideways, but never the unflipped, authentic face. It's a quiet dissonance, one that lives not just in mirrors, but in the way we perceive identity itself. Consider a painter carefully sketching a self-portrait. They gaze intently at their reflection, tracing lines and shadows, yet the image they reproduce is reversed. The hand that holds the brush mirrors the hand in the glass, but never aligns exactly with the unseen original. Through the centuries, artists have struggled with this invisible flip, sometimes confused by the subtle asymmetries it creates. The face they paint is not a direct capture, but a reflection twice removed, a symbol of how identity can be a layered, shifting construct rather than a fixed truth. This paradox extends beyond the glass. Imagine how others see you, through their own perspectives, shaped by their experiences and biases. Each view is like another flipped mirror, showing a version of you that might differ from what you expect or intend. Your self-image, shaped by reflections and feedback, drifts gently away from a core you can never quite touch. The mirror shift invites a gentle uncertainty that the real you might be less a fixed face and more a dance of shifting images, ever changing as you move through the world. As you sit quietly now, perhaps watching your own thoughts like reflections, notice how identity feels less like a solid singular face and more like a flickering light, bright in parts, dim in others, always reflecting, always shifting. The mirror shift identity. Drift reminds us that who we see and who we are may never be the same, and perhaps that's the quiet beauty hidden in the paradox. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a quiet forest, the air cool and still, the soft rustle of leaves whispering around you. In the silence, your mind drifts, not to the life you live now, but to futures once imagined, vivid like stars just out of reach. These are the lives you planned but never stepped into, possibilities that shimmered brightly before fading into shadow. Psychologists describe this haunting as the spiral of past futures, a loop where the mind returns endlessly to roads that might have been, tracing patterns of hope and loss. You may recall a dream of a distant city, a career left unpursued, a love never fully embraced. Each thought circles back, a ghost replaying the scenes of what could have been. These phantom paths shape your present as surely as any memory, threading through decisions, coloring your emotions with soft regret and quiet wonder. In ancient times, storytellers spoke of spirits caught between worlds, neither here nor there. Today, science reveals a psychological echo much like that, a ceaseless dance between choice and chance. The brain, wired for anticipation, clings to these unlived tomorrows, making them a part of your inner landscape. Sometimes they surface as sudden longing, other times as a gentle, lingering ache. As you listen now, let your mind spiral gently among those past futures. Feel the rhythm of their quiet return, not as burdens, but as companions, reminders of your complex, unfolding journey. Though these lives remain unwritten, their presence folds softly into your story, weaving a tapestry richer and more mysterious than the path you walk today. Imagine yourself standing quietly in a room bathed in soft afternoon light, your shadow stretching long and unfamiliar along the wall. At first glance, it might seem like a distortion, a dark shape that doesn't quite match the person you know in the mirror. The self-shadow. Misreading is this subtle confusion, where the part of yourself that falls into shadow is mistaken for a fault or a flaw, when in truth it is simply your own form cast from an unexpected angle. Throughout history, people have grappled with shadows both literal and metaphorical. In dim candlelight, a face might appear harsher, a gesture colder. In the quiet moments of reflection, a fleeting thought or impulse can seem like something alien, a shadow self, to be feared or rejected. Yet what we call flaw is often just a different view of ourselves, a reflection shaped by circumstance, mood, or the angle of perception. Like a sculptor's statue revealed by shifting light, the contours and shapes change, sometimes revealing strength where we saw weakness, depth where we saw emptiness. Imagine now that this misreading gently shapes how you relate to yourself and others. The moments when you hesitate, when self-doubt creeps in, are often the moments your shadow falls awkwardly, cast by fears, insecurities, or misunderstood intentions. But these shadows hold no secret malice. They are simply you, refracted through the imperfect light of experience. The self-shadow. Misreading reminds us that understanding ourselves requires patience, a gentle re-examination of the shapes we see in the dim light, recognizing that what appears as flaw may be nothing more than our own form, quietly shifting in the ever-changing glow. Imagine yourself standing quietly in a sunlit room, the air soft with the scent of warm wood and distant rain. You reach out to touch a leaf resting on a windowsill, its edges delicate beneath your fingertips. In this moment, the present seems tangible, yet the instant you focus your attention, it slips away like mist. The leaf you touched is already a memory, the warmth you felt now fading into what just was. This is the quiet paradox of presence. By the time you notice it, the moment is gone. Every breath you take unfolds between awareness and memory, a delicate dance where now is always just out of reach. Think of the seconds between heartbeats, the space between footsteps, the pause between words spoken in conversation. They all vanish even as you attempt to hold them, reminding you that life is not a steady state, but a stream, flowing forward with relentless motion. Philosophers and mystics have long pondered this paradox, that true presence can never be grasped. You cannot live a moment fully, in real time. Instead, you arrive slightly too late, aware only of its echo. Yet in this constant chase, there is a subtle beauty, the continuous unfolding of now, always new, always fleeting. Imagine yourself moving gently through time, arriving with each step just after the moment has passed, carrying its memory forward like a quiet flame lighting your path. In this way, presence is less a place to stand than a journey, an endless arrival where the past and future meet in the delicate space of here and now. Imagine yourself sitting quietly, leafing through an old photo album filled with moments from years past. Each picture tells a story, a fragment of your life carefully captured in time. But as you gaze, something curious happens. The lines between moments begin to blur. Faces from different days merge, conversations overlap, and events that once stood apart now seem to unfold as one seamless scene. This blending is the memory fusion trap. Our minds are remarkable storytellers, weaving fragments of experience into coherent narratives to make sense of the past. Yet when memories are similar in feeling or setting, they sometimes entwine like threads in a tapestry, creating a vivid image that feels certain but is actually a composite. Imagine recalling a family gathering where laughter echoed in the kitchen, then mixing it with another evening spent by the fireplace, the warmth and voices merging into a single, comforting memory that never truly happened as one. This fusion gives you certainty, a sense of clarity that feels natural and true. But beneath this confidence lies a quiet paradox. The very act of remembering reshapes what was, blending separate moments into a singular story. Imagine how this subtle merging colors your understanding of who you are, your past gently rewritten by the rhythms of your mind. It's a constant dance between reality and remembrance, a delicate balance that shapes your sense of self without you even noticing. Imagine yourself walking down a familiar path, the scent of rain-soaked earth rising softly as your footsteps press into the damp ground. The rhythm of your steps matches the steady drip of water from the leaves above. A quiet, unceasing flow, much like the subtle changes weaving through your life. This is the drip of self-change, the paradox that transformation happens so gradually, so imperceptibly, that you hardly notice it until one day, unexpectedly, you meet the reflection of your past and find a stranger staring back. Picture a traveler who returns to their childhood home after many years away. The rooms feel familiar. The worn wooden floor creaks as it always did. But the person who once lived there seems distant, almost foreign. Memories rise and fall like ripples in a pond, distorted by the passage of time and the slow drip of countless small choices and unnoticed shifts. The traveler feels the weight of change, not as a sudden storm, but as the patient erosion of identity, shaped by years of unseen moments. In daily life, this paradox unfolds quietly. You wake each morning, carrying the same name, but with thoughts and feelings shaped by experiences no longer visible on the surface. The laughter of old friends, the heartbreaks barely spoken, the dreams reshaped by new realities, all drip slowly into your being, coloring the person you are becoming. The you from yesterday becomes a distant echo, familiar yet altered beyond recognition. As you listen now, imagine the gentle drip of change weaving through your own story. The drip of self-change asks you to accept that identity is not fixed or frozen, but a flowing river, ever moving, ever shifting. Sometimes, the stranger you meet in your past is simply the you that time has patiently rewritten in quiet, unnoticeable ways. Until one day, it feels both strange and strangely familiar. Imagine yourself seated by a softly glowing fire, the warmth gently spreading as shadows flicker across ancient stone walls. Belief, like that flame, can seem steady and real, but what you hold true is often less about objective truth and more about endurance. You don't simply believe because something is true. You believe because it has survived the relentless questioning of your mind, the silent tests of doubt, the slow erosion of disbelief. Philosophers and psychologists have long noted that beliefs are less like fixed facts and more like living reflections, mirrors shaped by time, memory, and experience. When an idea withstands the sharp edge of scrutiny, when it weathers conflicting evidence and lingering uncertainty, it gains a quiet power. That power is not proof of truth, but proof of resilience. Consider the medieval scholars who debated the stars, or the villagers who passed down tales of saints and spirits. These stories and ideas persisted not because they were absolutely true in a modern sense, but because they survived the tests of generations, adapting and echoing in hearts and minds. The belief outlasted the question. As you listen now, imagine your own beliefs, those quietly held certainties, and the shadows they cast. Notice how some ideas flicker briefly and vanish, while others burn slow and steady, shaping your view of the world. In this gentle reflection, understand that belief is less about certainty and more about survival, an echo shaped not by fact alone, but by the lasting light it casts within your mind. Imagine yourself standing at a crossroads bathed in soft twilight, eyes fixed firmly on a single distant light. This light represents your deepest hope, the outcome you long for, above all else. The hope compression collapse is the quiet narrowing that follows when your focus tightens so intensely on one possibility that every other option fades into shadow, slipping away like whispered echoes down an empty hall. With each breath, the paths not taken grow more distant, less tangible, until they seem almost to vanish altogether. This phenomenon is not new. History is filled with moments where individuals or entire communities pinned their hopes on a single outcome: a battle's victory, a harvest's success, a dream realized. And as that hope grew, the world beyond it quietly receded. The rhythm of their lives became a steady march toward one goal, and flexibility softened into rigidity. The brilliance of many possible futures dimmed, leaving only the bright but narrow beam of one focused desire. Imagine now the subtle cost of this collapse. When hope compresses, the mind's openness shrinks. Alternatives that once shimmered at the edges, the quiet possibility of change, the gentle sway of compromise, slowly disappear, leaving a silhouette rigid and fragile. In the end, hope's collapse teaches a gentle lesson. To hold one dream too tightly is to lose the soft freedom of many. The more you hope for one outcome, the more the richness of possibility quietly dies away, leaving behind a single thread stretched taut, strong, but easily broken. Imagine yourself sitting quietly in a room, the soft murmur of distant voices blending with the rustle of leaves outside. Around you are people who care, whose smiles warm like gentle sunlight, whose laughter fills the space with ease. In these moments, you might believe they see you, truly see you, the real you beneath all layers. Yet, beneath that comforting thought lies a subtle truth. What they love is not the entirety of your being, but the carefully chosen parts you've allowed them to glimpse. From earliest days, we learn to wear masks, sometimes delicate, sometimes worn like armor, to navigate the world's vast and uncertain terrain. These masks shield our fears, hide our vulnerabilities, and reveal only fragments deemed safe. Imagine the small pauses before you speak, the hesitation before sharing a secret, the invisible walls built from years of cautious self-protection. People love the version they know, the smile you show, the stories you tell, the kindness you offer. But the depths remain a quiet mystery, hidden behind doors only you hold the keys to. This illusion of authenticity can feel both comforting and isolating. The affection we receive is genuine, yet it is shaped by what we dare to reveal, never the whole. Imagine yourself watching the dance of light and shadow on a wall. Both are parts of the same picture, yet one always conceals what the other reveals. In this delicate balance lies the human experience, craving connection while guarding the self. So, as you listen now, consider this gentle paradox. Love touches only the surfaces we allow, while the truest self remains quietly waiting, unseen but always present. Imagine yourself beginning a climb up a steep, winding path. At first, the goal is clear: a distant summit bathed in soft sunlight, promising rest and perspective. Each step feels purposeful, the rhythm steady, the air fresh and inviting. But as you ascend higher, the path grows narrower, the wind cooler, and the view behind you stretches farther than before. The clarity of your original reason begins to fade, replaced by the steady effort of putting one foot in front of the other. This is the climb disorientation problem. In life, as in climbing, the higher you go, the more achievements, responsibilities, or ambitions you gather, the harder it becomes to remember the spark that set you on the journey. Imagine a scholar buried in countless books, each one a step upward, yet forgetting the initial curiosity that stirred their mind. Or a traveler miles from home, whose destination blurs beneath layers of fatigue and routine. The mind holds on to the climb itself, the motion and struggle, while the original purpose slips quietly into the mist. Like a fog settling over a familiar landscape, the why becomes elusive, even as the climb continues. Imagine this slow unraveling, the rhythm of effort masking the fading light of intention. It is a gentle paradox. The higher you rise, the more the reason behind your ascent dissolves, leaving only the climb itself to carry you onward. Imagine yourself sitting in a quiet room where the stillness seems almost alive with unspoken words. The air carries a subtle weight, thick with memories that linger like faint echoes bouncing gently off the walls. This is the realm of the voice of absence, the paradox where the most powerful influence shaping your thoughts and feelings comes not from those who speak, but from those who have long since gone silent. Picture a child growing up with a chair left empty at the dinner table, the absence of a parent felt in every shared meal and whispered bedtime story. That empty space becomes filled, not with silence, but with a presence that shapes decisions, fears, and hopes. The child learns to listen to the quiet messages left behind in letters, photographs, or simple gestures once shared. Over time, this silent voice guides choices, molds dreams, and quietly directs the rhythm of their life, despite never uttering a single word again. This paradox extends into adulthood as well. Imagine how relationships fracture or end, yet their shadows stretch far beyond the final goodbye. The lessons learned, the wounds left open, and the love once given continue to echo within, influencing how you trust, how you love, and even how you see yourself. Sometimes, the absence becomes a louder voice than any present conversation, whispering through memories and shaping the path forward. As you settle deeper into this reflection, notice how absence can fill a room more fully than presence. The voice of absence is not emptiness, it is a silent companion, a steady undercurrent in the river of your life. It invites you to hear not just what is spoken, but what remains unsaid, reminding us that sometimes the most profound influence is the one that no longer speaks, yet never truly leaves. Imagine yourself sitting in a quiet room, the soft hum of life outside fading into the background. You feel a gentle anticipation building, the kind that comes with expecting something wonderful, a reunion, a celebration, or a quiet moment of peace. Yet, as this anticipation grows, a curious thing happens. The joy begins to soften, dulled by the vividness of your own mental rehearsal. Every detail imagined, every smile pictured, subtly shifts the moment before it even arrives. Psychologists explain this as the expectation paradox. When you pre-plan joy too thoroughly, your mind plays the scene repeatedly, like a softly worn record. The first few listens are bright and thrilling, but as the mental rehearsal continues, the thrill fades. The surprise, the spark that makes a moment truly alive, slips away quietly, replaced by a sense of familiarity, even inevitability. Think of a medieval festival, anticipated by villagers for weeks. They dream of the colors, the music, the taste of sweet cakes. But when the day arrives, the actual sounds and sights, no matter how beautiful, seem slightly less vivid, as if their minds had already lived the moment before the first drumbeat. The joy, though present, carries a gentle shadow, an echo of the imagined past rather than the vibrant now. As you listen tonight, let your thoughts drift gently over this paradox. Feel the quiet balance between anticipation and experience, and allow yourself to find peace in the unexpected, the surprises that remain, shimmering softly just beyond the reach of even the most careful plans. Imagine yourself seated at a quiet desk, pen poised over a journal, recording the unfolding experiment that is your own life. You are both the observer and the observed, the subject and the experimenter, trying to make sense of the swirling patterns of choices, habits, and moments that define your days. The self-experiment outcome. Bias quietly unfolds here. As soon as you focus attention on a particular part of your behavior or thought, the very act of observing shifts the results, subtly reshaping what you thought was fixed. This bias is a gentle but persistent companion in daily life. When you decide to track your moods, your productivity, or even your reactions, the awareness itself nudges you to act differently, sometimes more cautiously, sometimes with unexpected boldness. Like a scientist altering conditions simply by measuring temperature, Your observations create ripples in the fabric of your own experience. Over time, this means that your memories and conclusions about yourself are not static truths, but evolving stories, rewritten by the very act of reflection. Throughout history, thinkers have noted this paradox. Knowledge changes the known. In the rhythm of your life, this means the patterns you try to analyze are always in flux, shaped by the gaze you cast upon them. Imagine then that the self you measure is never quite the same self that exists outside your attention. The self-experiment outcome. Bias reminds you gently that to know yourself is also to change yourself. That observation and transformation walk hand in hand in the quiet unfolding of your story. Imagine yourself carrying a weight invisible to others, a burden worn quietly beneath smiles and steady hands. Over time, surviving hardship becomes almost second nature, like breathing without thinking. Friends and strangers alike see your strength and assume it endless, a well that never runs dry. But this quiet resilience has its limits, and in surviving too much, a hidden trap forms. When you appear strong through every storm, others may stop asking if you're truly okay. They no longer notice the small cracks or the slow bleed beneath the surface. Imagine a candle burning steadily in the dark, at first bright and unwavering, but gradually melting away without anyone realizing. The world, trusting your endurance, forgets to check if you still need care. This fatigue, invisible yet profound, can feel isolating. The struggle continues, but the space to rest and heal grows smaller. In history and everyday life, those who bear too much are often left alone, their pain unseen beneath the armor they've crafted. Imagine yourself standing quietly, strength worn thin, longing for the gentle question, the simple recognition that even the strongest need tending. As you listen, remember that resilience is not endless. It is a fragile thread that needs gentle hands and kind eyes to hold. Survival is not proof of invincibility, but a call to pause, to be seen beyond the mask, and to heal in the quiet moments between storms. Imagine yourself standing in a quiet room lined with mirrors, each reflecting a slightly different image of you. These reflections aren't quite accurate. They show versions shaped by the expectations, memories, and assumptions of those around you. Each person you know carries their own picture of who you are, often frozen in moments past, unchanging despite the passing of time. This is the heart of the relationship echo chamber. As you interact with others, you may find yourself shifting, subtly adjusting your words, your tone, even your posture, trying to fit the image they hold. Imagine a friend who remembers you as carefree and adventurous, or a colleague who sees only your professional side, unaware of the quiet struggles beneath. These fixed versions echo back at you, shaping how you are treated, and slowly, how you see yourself. It becomes a dance where you change for the person they imagined, rather than the one you truly are now. This feedback loop can feel like a gentle trap. No matter how much you grow or evolve, others' perceptions lag behind, crystallized in their memories and expectations. Imagine the quiet frustration of wanting to break free, but finding your reflection stuck in their eyes, a version you can't update or erase. It's a subtle paradox of connection. The closer the relationship, the harder it can be to rewrite the story others have already written about you. Imagine yourself in a quiet room, the soft hum of a distant clock marking each passing second. At first, everything feels familiar. The warmth of a word, the comfort of a name, the steady pulse of a cherished goal. But as moments stretch and repeat, a strange sensation creeps in. Meanings begin to fade, like colors slowly washing away under a gentle rain. This is the meaning leak phenomenon, where even the most profound things, love, dreams, your own name, can lose their weight if experienced too often without pause. Consider a poet who repeats the same line over and over, watching as the words unravel before their eyes. What once sang with emotion becomes a hollow string of sounds, detached from feeling or purpose. The rhythm remains, but the meaning slips away, leaving behind only an echo of what once was. This isn't just a trick of language. It's a quiet reminder of how our minds seek novelty to sustain significance. In daily life, this phenomenon quietly shapes experience. Imagine saying, "I love you," so often it becomes a mechanical sound, or pursuing a goal so relentlessly that the passion behind it dulls into routine. Even your own name, the anchor of your identity, can begin to feel like a strange label, its significance diluted by endless repetition. The world, once vibrant with meaning, can blur into a monotone landscape if not renewed by fresh perspective. As you listen now, imagine this slow leak of meaning weaving through your thoughts and memories. The meaning leak phenomenon isn't a loss to fear, but an invitation to rediscover depth by embracing change, pause, and reflection. It gently asks you to cherish the first glance, the first word, the first breath, because in the dance between presence and repetition, meaning is always reborn anew. Imagine yourself entering a quiet, softly lit room lined entirely with mirrors. Each reflection folds into the next, creating infinite repetitions that blur the edges between where one image ends and another begins. In relationships, something very much like this can happen. Two people, once distinct and separate, begin to reflect each other so deeply that their identities intertwine, echoing endlessly like self-repeating code. Psychologists call this phenomenon the mirror room regression. Over time, partners absorb one another's habits, gestures, even thoughts, until the boundary between self and other becomes hazy. You might notice your own emotions echoing theirs before you fully understand why, or find your choices shaped more by their expectations than your own desires. This mirroring can bring comfort and connection, like a shared rhythm humming softly beneath daily life. Yet, this reflection is also a subtle trap. When two selves loop into each other too tightly, the unique contours that define individuality begin to fade. Conversations repeat familiar patterns, behaviors become predictable scripts, and the relationship feels less like a dance of two distinct people and more like a looped recording playing on repeat. Imagine a medieval couple bound by duty and affection, their days so intertwined that their separate dreams dissolve into shared routine. In that quiet regression, love persists, but the people who loved may quietly lose themselves, folded into reflections of each other, like shadows tracing endless spirals on the walls. As you listen, let this image settle gently. Relationships hold the power to reflect and reshape us, sometimes blurring the line between self and echo. And in that soft blurring lies both the comfort of connection and the quiet risk of losing one's own voice. Imagine yourself standing before a vast cabinet, its countless drawers labeled with moments and memories. Among them lies a drawer marked grief, worn, and often revisited. The filing error of grief is the quiet, persistent habit of returning again and again to this same drawer, opening it repeatedly, not because the contents have changed, but because you hope that this time the folder will reveal something new. Yet each glance offers familiar pages, sorrow, loss, longing, etched deeply but unchanging. Grief is often imagined as a series of steps, a neat progression from pain toward peace. But in reality, it unfolds less like a path and more like this filing cabinet. Drawers opened in no particular order, memories and emotions spilling out in waves, sometimes catching you unaware. Imagine a widow returning to the worn letters of a lost love, or a child clutching a faded photograph, each time searching for answers or comfort that remain just out of reach. The rhythm of this experience is cyclical, not linear, a gentle repetition born from hope rather than despair. Throughout history, cultures have recognized this unfolding mystery of grief. Some created rituals around remembrance, offering structure to what is essentially a fluid, ongoing process. You too might find yourself circling familiar memories, replaying conversations, or imagining alternate endings. The filing error of grief teaches us that healing is not about closing drawers, but learning to hold the contents with quiet patience. accepting that some folders may never change, yet they remain a part of your story, revisited with the softest hope for understanding. Imagine yourself rolling a pair of dice across a worn wooden table, the small cubes tumbling unpredictably as they scatter. At first glance, each face seems equal, each outcome equally possible, a pure chance. Yet beneath their smooth edges and familiar dots lies a secret invisible to the eye. Some dice are carved long before your first breath, weighted subtly, shaped by hands you never met, decisions made in shadows you cannot see. Life's randomness often feels fair, a cosmic game where luck and chance hold equal sway. But imagine standing on a vast stage where some actors know the script before the curtain rises, while others improvise with blindfolds. The dice you roll may seem free, but the balance inside was set ages ago, hidden, deliberate, impossible to detect. It is not that fate is cruel, but that the game was arranged before you even understood the rules. This paradox unfolds quietly across history and daily life, in whispered rumors of rigged lotteries, in inherited privilege unseen by those who benefit, in moments where opportunity seems to favor unseen hands. Imagine yourself trying to play fairly, only to find the game itself subtly bent against you, the dice forever tilting beneath your fingers. As you listen now, consider the unseen weights beneath what appears random, the quiet shaping of outcomes before you even take your turn. And in this reflection, find the delicate balance between acceptance and the courage to reshape the game on your own terms. Imagine yourself sitting quietly, the soft hum of the world around you fading into the background as your mind turns inward. Thoughts arise, some familiar, others strange, like echoes from distant rooms in a vast ancestral home. Many of these thoughts are not truly your own. They have traveled across generations, passed down like fragile heirlooms, hidden within stories, biases, and fears. Consider the tales your family whispered at night, lessons wrapped in caution or hope, woven deeply into the fabric of your beliefs. Imagine how fears once felt by ancestors living through hardship, scarcity, danger, loss, have imprinted on their descendants, shaping instincts and reactions you might barely recognize. These mental inheritances act like invisible threads, connecting your mind to theirs, looping back and forth through time, carrying echoes of lives you never lived, but feel deeply nonetheless. This inheritance is neither burden nor gift alone, but a subtle dance of influence and identity. Imagine tracing a thought back, only to find its roots tangled in voices and experiences long faded. The line between your mind and the past blurs gently, revealing a shared landscape of memory and meaning. It is a quiet paradox. The self is both uniquely yours and an accumulation of countless others, a living mosaic of inherited thoughts that quietly shape who you are. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of an open field beneath a vast, endless sky. The space before you stretches without boundary, inviting exploration, yet the sheer openness feels overwhelming, like stepping into a dream where the horizon never ends. This is the locked freedom paradox, the reality that you possess far more freedom than you realize, but the vastness of that freedom can feel so immense, so uncontained, that it becomes terrifying, pushing you instead to seek comfort within rules and boundaries. Consider a medieval monk in a quiet monastery. Outside, the world is chaotic and unpredictable, but inside these stone walls, the rhythms of prayer and routine offer safety. The monk's freedom is limited by vows and schedules, yet within those limits lies a profound sense of peace. The paradox is that these self-imposed constraints, far from shackling, provide a framework where the soul can breathe. The vast openness beyond feels like a wilderness, too wild, too uncertain to face alone. In everyday life, this tension plays out quietly. You might crave independence but find comfort in habits, rules, or traditions that guide your steps. The freedom to choose anything, at any moment, can feel like a weight rather than a gift. Imagine a traveler with infinite roads before them, each possibility a fork that must be decided, each choice a burden pressing heavier with its endless options. The mind seeks shelter in the known, the structured, the familiar path. As you listen now, imagine this paradox unfolding within yourself, the freedom that exists, vast and waiting, and the gentle pull toward boundaries that make that freedom feel safe enough to hold. The locked freedom paradox reminds us that sometimes choosing limits is not a loss, but a way to embrace the freedom we truly need, freedom that feels less like endless emptiness and more like a home. Imagine yourself as twilight slips quietly into night, the world outside softening into shadows and muted sounds. As darkness deepens, a subtle transformation stirs within, the part of you that the daylight never fully knows. At night, you become someone different, calmer, quieter, sometimes sadder, but also truer. This is your night self, slipping free from the demands and distractions of day, revealing layers often hidden beneath your waking mask. Psychologists describe this as the night self divergence. When light fades, the mind sheds its social armor, and emotions once suppressed rise gently to the surface. In the stillness, regrets, hopes, and honest fears settle with a clarity daylight often obscures. You might find yourself reflecting deeply on your life, sensing truths that seem too fragile for the harshness of morning. Yet, come dawn, this nocturnal self is often disowned. The calm vulnerability of night retreats, replaced by the roles and rhythms of day. The sadness and authenticity felt in darkness feel risky in daylight's glare, so you tuck those parts away, like fragile letters locked in a drawer. This creates a quiet divide within, a self known intimately in solitude, but hidden when the world is watching. Imagine a medieval monk, alone in a candlelit cell, confronting the truths of his soul at night, only to resume the rigid routines of dawn with a composed face. Or a traveler resting beneath a vast, starry sky, where quiet confessions rise in the night air, but vanish with sunrise. As you listen tonight, allow yourself to embrace that gentle divergence. Let the calm, true self of darkness breathe freely, even if only for these moments, before the day calls you back again. Imagine yourself moving slowly through a quiet house, each room holding its own light, its own shadows, and a subtly different version of you. In the kitchen, your voice softens as the hum of the stove blends with the morning's calm. In the study, your thoughts sharpen, eyes narrowing over pages of text. In the hallway, you pause briefly, neither here nor there, caught between selves. The doorframe identity paradox quietly unfolds in these moments, suggesting that who you are is not a single, fixed self, but a collection of shifting performances, each tailored to the space you occupy. Throughout history, philosophers and playwrights have pondered the fluidity of identity. Ancient dramas staged masks for each character, and the metaphor remains vivid. Personality as a hallway lined with costumes, each chosen with subtle care. Imagine how your gestures change when you enter a friend's home, compared to a formal meeting or a solitary walk outside. The texture of the walls, the scent in the air, the ambient sounds, all guide you to adopt a slightly altered version of yourself, perfectly suited to the moment. This paradox gently invites you to consider the spaces between rooms, the doorframes, as thresholds of transformation. You are not less authentic for these changes. Rather, you are layered, nuanced, a mosaic formed from countless quiet adjustments. The doorframe identity paradox is a soft reminder that identity is not a single mask worn at all times, but a rich tapestry woven from the many selves you quietly wear as you move through your days. Imagine yourself stepping finally across a threshold you have long sought, a place, a moment, a goal shaped by countless days and dreams. The path behind you stretches with memories, early steps filled with hope, the winding turns marked by doubt, the steady progress that kept you moving forward. But now, having arrived, something quietly shifts. The meaning that once filled each step seems to vanish, dissolving like mist in morning light, leaving a stillness that feels unexpectedly hollow. The journey had carried its own weight, a rhythm of anticipation, struggle, and discovery. Each mile was stitched with purpose, each challenge a reason to keep going. But reaching the destination, the moment you thought would bring fulfillment, can instead bring a subtle emptiness. Imagine the silence after a long song ends, the quiet when the final page is turned. What once pulsed with energy now fades, and the vivid colors of the journey blur into the soft gray of completion. This experience is shared across time and cultures, from explorers who found new lands to artists who unveiled long-worked creations. The destination, though treasured, can never fully contain the meaning that lived in the pursuit. Imagine yourself pausing here, between what was and what comes next, feeling the gentle dissolution of meaning even as new paths await. In this quiet space, there is room to breathe, to remember that sometimes the journey itself is the true destination, and its fading meaning is simply the beginning of another story yet to unfold. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a vast stage, the bright lights warm but blinding, the audience's applause a distant echo that both beckons and confuses. You step forward, chasing the sound, believing it to be the sign of your true calling. Yet, with every cheer, a subtle emptiness lingers, a whisper of something missing beneath the noise. This is the calling confusion cycle. In many lives, the line between calling and validation blurs. Imagine a musician playing not for the love of music itself, but for the crowd's approval, or a scholar publishing endlessly, driven more by recognition than curiosity. The applause becomes the goal, a beacon that pulls you onward, while the original purpose slips quietly into shadow. The rhythm of seeking praise grows familiar, a constant pursuit that never quite fills the heart. This cycle feeds on itself, a gentle trap where fulfillment is fleeting, always just beyond reach. Imagine running after a mirage. Each step brings the promise of satisfaction, but the feeling dissolves before it settles. The deeper paradox is this: chasing validation can drown out the true calling, leaving you wondering why contentment never stays. Yet beneath the noise, if you listen closely, the faint pulse of purpose still beats, waiting to be heard beyond the echo chamber of applause. Imagine yourself standing at a crossroads on a quiet evening, the fading light casting long shadows over the worn paths before you. You hesitate, seeking a sign, a flicker, a whisper, perhaps a coin tossed into the air to guide your next step. Yet, beneath this search lies a subtle paradox: the choice coin flip. The unsettling idea that the decisions you ponder so deeply have already been made by your subconscious mind, and the signs you seek are mere stories your conscious self tells to feel comforted by fate. Consider a medieval merchant preparing for a risky voyage. He might consult the stars, read omens, or flip a coin to decide which route to take. To him, these rituals seem like vital acts of choice. But modern psychology reveals that such external cues often serve as reassurance. Deep within, the merchant's instincts and experiences have already shaped his path. The coin flip becomes less a true decision and more a ritualized confirmation, a way to ease the burden of responsibility by imagining fate as a partner in the choice. This paradox quietly unfolds in everyday moments. Imagine standing in a cafe, debating whether to say hello to a stranger or choosing between two dishes. You ask yourself for a sign, a gut feeling, or a subtle nudge from the universe. But beneath this surface, your brain has already leaned one way, informed by memories, preferences, and invisible patterns. The conscious act of choosing feels like free will, yet it's a performance, a gentle dance with destiny where you pretend the coin is still spinning. As you listen now, reflect on this quiet flip between choice and chance, conscious thought and hidden impulse. The choice coin. Flip reminds us that while we cherish our freedom to choose, much of our decision-making unfolds silently before we even notice. Yet, in embracing this paradox, there is comfort, a sense that fate and self walk hand in hand, weaving the story of who we are with threads both seen and unseen. Imagine yourself sitting quietly after a sudden storm, the sky still heavy with clouds and the air thick with the scent of damp earth. In the stillness that follows, your mind searches for order amid the chaos, looking for patterns where there may be none. This is the gentle but powerful impulse behind the pattern fabrication glitch, the way we craft meaning from pain, weaving stories from fragments to soothe the helplessness that trauma can leave behind. Psychologists have found that after distressing events, people instinctively seek connections, cause and effect, even in random misfortune. It's a survival mechanism, a quiet attempt to reclaim control by fitting the pieces together. A broken vase becomes a symbol of loss. A sudden silence is read as a hidden message. These patterns, though sometimes false, help us build a narrative, a fabric that wraps around raw emotion and gives it shape. Imagine a medieval village struck by sudden illness or crop failure. Villagers might read omens in the flight of birds or the cracks in the earth, crafting explanations that bring comfort or warnings. These interpretations offer a fragile order in a world often unpredictable and cruel. Tonight, as you listen, let yourself feel the tender impulse to find meaning. Understand that this pattern making is not always truth, but a balm, a way your mind softly reassembles scattered pieces to protect you. In that weaving lies both vulnerability and quiet resilience, a testament to how deeply we yearn to feel safe, even in the aftermath of chaos. Imagine yourself seated quietly by a window, watching the slow weave of sunlight across shifting scenes outside. Inside your mind, something equally intricate unfolds, the stitching consciousness illusion, where your brain knits together moments, memories, and sensations into a seamless narrative called you. Like a delicate tapestry woven thread by thread, this sense of self appears whole and continuous. Yet beneath the surface, the seams are fragile, and tiny gaps let through flickers of uncertainty. Throughout history, thinkers have marveled at this patchwork nature of consciousness. Ancient philosophers imagined the soul as a continuous thread, while modern science reveals how fleeting and fragmented experience truly is. Moments slip by and are stitched together not with perfect precision, but with approximation, blending past and present into a story you tell yourself. Imagine a quilt with frayed edges, where some threads loosen and reveal glimpses of the unknown beneath. This illusion is gentle but persistent, the mind's quiet insistence on continuity even as pieces drift and fade. You might notice it in sudden lapses of memory, in feelings that seem out of place, or in moments when your identity feels less certain. The stitching consciousness illusion reminds us that you are both a creation and a mystery, a carefully woven narrative, fragile and incomplete, quietly held together by the brain's tireless, imperfect weaving. Imagine yourself holding a measuring tape, its worn edges marked with numbers, stretching endlessly across a surface. Each number promises clarity, a way to quantify, to compare, to know your place. But these marks were not drawn by chance. Someone, somewhere, once carved them out of their own fears, doubts, and limits, shaping the scale by which you now judge yourself. This measuring tape is not neutral. It carries the weight of others' anxieties, the shadows of expectations that may never have fit your true shape. Throughout history, societies have crafted countless scales, standards of beauty, success, intelligence, and worth. These rulers extend beyond rulers and tapes. They live in whispered judgments, in passing comments, and in the silent voices of comparison that echo within. Imagine yourself standing before a mirror framed by these external measures, feeling the tension of striving to fit numbers that were never meant for you. The danger lies in forgetting that every scale is human-made, shaped by fears and limits that are not your own. By trusting these measures blindly, you risk shrinking yourself, overlooking the vastness of your unique journey and value. Imagine gently setting down the tape, stepping back, and seeing yourself beyond the numbers, a whole being unmeasured by fear or expectation. As you listen now, consider the quiet liberation in releasing external scales and the invitation to find worth in your own uncharted measure. Imagine yourself stepping into a vast, quiet room, an empty space where silence stretches endlessly in every direction. This emptiness feels strange at first, even unsettling, yet something about it draws you back, again and again. It is the only place within where nothing pretends, where the usual noise of thoughts and distractions falls away. This is the heart of the void familiarity bias. We fear the unknown because it unsettles the patterns we rely on, but paradoxically, we return to the same inner emptiness because it is familiar in its honesty. Imagine the endless chatter of worries, hopes, and memories fading into stillness, revealing a space untouched by illusion. In this void, there is no false promise, no mask, no story, only quiet truth. It's a strange comfort, like returning to a room where everything is stripped down to its bare essence. This bias guides us gently, yet persistently, pulling us toward what is known even when it feels like nothing. Imagine how the mind prefers this familiar emptiness to the uncertainty of new experiences or feelings. The paradox lies in the void's dual nature, feared for its emptiness, yet chosen for its undeniable authenticity. It is a silent refuge, a place that neither deceives nor demands, where the self can simply be without pretense or expectation. Imagine yourself sitting quietly in a softly lit room, the gentle stillness wrapping around you like a warm blanket. Yet beneath this calm, a subtle tension stirs, the expectation that any moment a sound might break the silence, a ping, a buzz, a vibration. This is the notification ghost effect, a modern paradox where even the absence of noise feels charged with meaning, as if silence itself becomes a message waiting to be received. You've been conditioned to find comfort not in peace, but in the steady pulse of interruptions. Picture a scholar in a grand medieval library, surrounded by endless shelves of ancient manuscripts. The only sounds are the faint rustle of parchment and the scratch of quills. In this calm, every whisper carries weight. Silence itself demands attention. Now imagine the contrast in our own time, where the quiet is broken not by whispered secrets, but by digital alerts, each ping a small call to presence, pulling focus, fragmenting thought. Over years, this steady rhythm trains the mind to associate silence not with rest, but with suspense. This paradox weaves itself into daily life. You might sit scrolling through your phone, only to pause, fingers hovering, waiting for a notification that never comes. The quiet becomes almost uncomfortable, a ghostly presence that urges you to check again, to stay connected. The calm before the ping grows louder than any actual sound. Even moments of peace are shadowed by this conditioned vigilance, where the mind reads absence as message, stillness as signal. As you listen now, perhaps in a moment of quiet, notice the gentle tug of the notification ghost within you, the subtle discomfort of silence, the whisper of anticipation that lingers like a fading echo. This effect reminds us how modern life rewires our sense of calm, turning silence from sanctuary into stage. And in this strange dance between noise and quiet, you find yourself both haunted and comforted by the invisible call that never truly rests. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a grand fairground where the carousel spins endlessly under a canopy of flickering lights. Each time you mount a horse, the music swells, and the ride carries you around again and again, faster and faster. This is the quiet grip of the achievement carousel paradox. With every success you reach, the next one waits just beyond your grasp, pulling you back into the spin before you can rest. Psychologists observe that achievement can become a restless cycle, where fulfillment is always just out of reach. The thrill of reaching a goal fades quickly, replaced by the urge to pursue the next milestone, the next accolade, or the next challenge. The very victories that should bring peace instead feed a relentless momentum, a wheel that never stops turning. Consider a medieval artisan who crafts a prized tapestry, only to dream of a more intricate design, or a scholar whose celebrated manuscript earns praise, yet stirs a hunger for deeper knowledge. Their satisfaction is fleeting, overshadowed by the echo of what could come next. This endless striving becomes both a source of purpose and a subtle trap, where the joy of accomplishment is forever deferred. As you listen now, let this image settle softly in your mind. Recognize the rhythm of your own spinning carousel, the tension between triumph and the next pursuit. And in this gentle reflection, find space to imagine what it might feel like to step down, if only for a moment, and simply breathe in the quiet stillness between rides. Imagine yourself walking through a vast, ancient library filled with towering shelves, each lined with books representing everything you have ever learned. With every new volume you pull from the shelf, every fact absorbed, every skill mastered, the shadows shift, and the familiar pages of your earlier self begin to fade. The learning-forgetting symmetry quietly unfolds here. As knowledge grows, it quietly erases the innocence and simplicity that came before, like a candle burning away the soft glow of twilight. This phenomenon is not sudden, but a gentle, unrelenting tide. Each new insight or experience folds into your identity, reshaping who you are, while memories of your former naivety slip softly into the background. Imagine a child discovering the world for the first time, their awe untainted, their vision wide and unfiltered. Over time, as understanding deepens, that pure perspective is gradually consumed, replaced by complexity, nuance, and sometimes doubt. Throughout history, thinkers have reflected on this trade-off. The poet laments the loss of innocence. The scholar embraces the burden of wisdom. The rhythm of learning and forgetting is a delicate dance, where every step forward carries a whisper of what is left behind. The learning-forgetting symmetry reminds us that growth is both gain and loss, a quiet transformation where knowledge devours the innocence it once replaced, quietly reshaping the story of who you are. Imagine yourself in a quiet room adjusting the volume on a small radio. Some voices are easy to hear, bright, clear, commanding attention. Others are softer, subtle, barely rising above the gentle hum of background noise. In much the same way, you carry parts of yourself like a collection of voices, some bold and loud, others delicate and whispered. Yet, in trying to be heard, you may find yourself turning up the volume on certain traits, pushing them forward until they fill the space. This desire to amplify comes from a longing to be noticed, understood, or valued. You speak louder, stand taller, or wear your confidence like armor, hoping these parts will define you. But in doing so, you risk drowning out the softer traits, the quiet kindness, the gentle patience, the thoughtful reflections that were never meant to compete but to enrich the whole. Imagine a symphony where one instrument dominates, the melody loses its balance, the richness fades. Throughout life, it's easy to forget that some parts of you were meant to whisper, to exist in shadows where they nurture rather than shout. These quieter traits hold their own power, the depth in a gaze, the calm in a storm, the warmth in a touch. Imagine now gently lowering the volume, allowing all parts to coexist, loud and soft, bold and gentle, each essential to the full harmony of your being. As you listen, consider the freedom in embracing every voice within, honoring both the whispers and the shouts that make you whole. Imagine yourself standing in a vast winter landscape, the air crisp and biting, the ground blanketed in endless snow. At first, the cold is sharp, a sudden shock that awakens every nerve. But as time passes, the chill seeps deeper, settling into your bones until warmth feels distant and memory of pain grows faint. This is the numbness accumulation fallacy, the subtle transformation that happens when suppressed pain turns into a frozen silence. In many lives, difficult feelings are pushed down, hidden beneath layers of distraction or stoic endurance. Imagine carrying burdens quietly, day after day, until the sharp sting of sorrow or fear dulls into an indistinct numbness. The heart, once aching, grows colder, shielded by an invisible frost that both protects and isolates. Yet this silence can be deceiving. Sometimes it's healing, a slow mending beneath the surface. Other times, it is apathy, a quiet surrender that blurs the line between strength and giving up. The paradox lies in this indistinction. Imagine standing at the edge of that frozen landscape, unsure whether the stillness around you is the promise of renewal or the cold grip of retreat. The numbness accumulates like snowdrifts, both a refuge and a prison, leaving you wondering if the quiet is peace or emptiness. It is a delicate balance, a silent echo of pain's journey through the heart, neither fully gone nor fully alive. Imagine yourself in a shadowed room, the quiet thick with memories you carry alone. You recall moments of pain, the silent struggles hidden beneath your steady exterior. The witness scar illusion explores a haunting paradox, the belief that suffering must be witnessed to be real. Yet what happens when no one truly sees your pain? Does that silent agony lose its meaning, or does it burn just as fiercely within, untouched by eyes or words? Picture a forgotten prisoner in a medieval dungeon, chained and unseen, his cries swallowed by stone walls. Outside, the world moves on unaware, leaving his pain unacknowledged. Yet inside, the torment shapes him. It carves deep lines, not for others to see, but etched invisibly into his very being. His suffering does not vanish because it remains unseen. It persists, a scar on the soul, quietly real in the absence of witnesses. This illusion plays out quietly in daily life, too. You may carry burdens so private, so deeply personal, that they never surface for others to witness. Friends might sense a shadow, but the full weight stays locked inside. The paradox lies in the question: if pain is unshared, does it become less valid? Or is the true measure of suffering found not in external acknowledgement, but in its silent, unyielding presence within? As you listen now, imagine the delicate tension of the witness scar illusion weaving through your own story. The unseen struggles, the quiet resilience, the invisible scars that shape who you are. This paradox gently reminds us that pain does not need an audience to be real. It exists fully, even when witnessed by no one but ourselves. Imagine yourself stepping off a train into a bustling new city, the air carrying unfamiliar scents, sounds, and rhythms. As you walk the streets, you notice subtle shifts within. Your voice changes, your thoughts take on new colors, and your moods sway gently with the city's pulse. It feels as if you've become someone else, shaped by the place itself. This is the curious phenomenon of the location-based personality trick. The idea that your sense of self might not be fixed, but fluid, geotagged to the places you inhabit. Psychologists have long observed that environment profoundly influences behavior. Studies show people act differently in varied settings, more open in cafes, more reserved in libraries, more energetic in vibrant neighborhoods. Our identities are woven with the textures of where we live, work, and wander. Like a traveler donning different clothes for each city, your personality adapts, sometimes subtly, sometimes profoundly. Imagine a medieval merchant visiting distant markets, his demeanor shifting with each port, reflecting local customs and expectations, or a scholar moving between cloistered monasteries and bustling towns, adopting new manners and thoughts with each change. These shifts shape not only how others see you, but also how you see yourself. As you listen now, let your mind drift through these cities, these selves. Consider how much of who you are is tied to where you stand, and in this gentle reflection, find comfort in the fluidity, the endless possibility of becoming different versions of yourself, geotagged not just to places, but to moments in time. Imagine yourself in a quiet room where the air hangs heavy with silence, each breath slow and measured. This stillness, though sought after, brings an unexpected tension, the subtle restlessness beneath calm. The stillness. Anxiety contradiction unfolds here, the paradox that while you yearn for peace, the very absence of noise and movement can stir unease deep within, as if your mind rebels against the quiet it once desperately needed. Throughout the ages, this contradiction has touched countless lives: monks in secluded monasteries, seekers in silent retreats, and anyone who has sat alone in a room, all have faced the strange discomfort that arises when stillness lingers too long. Imagine the way your thoughts begin to circle, like leaves caught in a gentle breeze, shifting from one worry to another. Over time, what was once discomfort slowly morphs into a strange kind of comfort, a familiar tension that settles like a shadow alongside peace. The rhythm of this experience is subtle and enduring. The stillness you crave is also the stillness that unsettles, and this duality shapes your relationship with quiet moments. The stillness. Anxiety contradiction. Gently reminds you that discomfort and comfort are not always opposites. Sometimes, what disturbs us most quietly becomes the space where we find our deepest calm. In this delicate balance, the restless heart learns to rest. Imagine yourself sitting quietly, eyes closed, as a moment from the past slowly unfolds. An error, a slip, a choice that didn't turn out as you wished. You replay it in your mind like a worn recording, each detail sharpened, every feeling vivid. With every replay, the scene seems more real, more urgent, as if your brain is retracing the steps and rehearsing the regret again and again. This repetition, though unconscious, is powerful. It rewires the pathways of your mind, etching the mistake deeper into memory, binding you in a loop of sorrow and self-reproach. Neuroscience reveals that memories are not fixed photographs, but living networks, shaped and reshaped each time they are recalled. By revisiting regret repeatedly, you strengthen its grip, like watering a weed in a garden meant for flowers. The mind, in its effort to make sense of the past, can trap itself in a cycle where regret becomes a self-hypnosis, an endless echo that dulls your sense of freedom and peace. Imagine now the quiet difference when you allow the memory to drift past without grasping it tight, like watching clouds move across a sky. The pain softens, and the brain begins to rewire once more, forming new paths of acceptance and release. This subtle shift does not erase the past, but loosens its hold, inviting healing instead of repetition. As you listen, consider the power in choosing which memories to nurture and which to let fade, freeing your mind from the endless replay of regret. Imagine yourself standing in a quiet room, the soft light casting gentle shadows around you. With each person who truly sees you, your thoughts, your fears, your hidden corners, the walls seem to both draw closer and stretch wider. The paradox of intimacy unfolds here. The more someone knows you, the more you feel the fragile weight of being truly seen. This is the intimacy exposure bias. As connections deepen, you might notice a subtle tension growing inside, a mix of relief and hesitation. Imagine sharing a secret with a close friend, the words lifting a burden, yet stirring a quiet fear that this openness might somehow unravel the delicate threads holding you together. Truth invites closeness, like a warm light drawing others near, but it also reveals vulnerabilities that feel dangerously exposed. This delicate balance creates a quiet cycle. The desire to be understood pulls you forward, but the fear of being fully known holds you back. Imagine walking a narrow bridge suspended between two cliffs. On one side, the hope of connection. On the other, the risk of collapse. The intimacy exposure. Bias is a gentle tension within the heart, a reminder that in every moment of openness lies both the promise of closeness and the shadow of loss. Imagine yourself opening a weathered journal, the pages yellowed and soft beneath your fingers, ink fading but still legible. As you begin to read, the words tell stories, stories of hopes, fears, and moments lived long ago. Yet, something strange happens. The voice on the page feels distant, like a character in a novel rather than a reflection of your own self. This is the diary disassociation glitch, the paradox where your past self seems like someone else entirely, separated from the present by time and memory. Picture a scholar in a quiet study, poring over ancient manuscripts that reveal the lives of forgotten ancestors. Each page offers glimpses into a world that feels both familiar and alien. Similarly, when you revisit your own history, the thoughts and feelings recorded can feel oddly detached, as if written by a stranger who once walked your path but is no longer you. The pen that traced those lines belongs to a different voice, a different consciousness shaped by the distance of years. This paradox gently unfolds in everyday life. As time moves forward, memories shift, perspectives change, and the self you were becomes a story told from afar. Your old journals become archives of someone else's experience, someone you once were, but no longer are. The emotions you recorded may stir, but the connection feels fragile, like a bridge across a quiet river you no longer need to cross. As you listen now, imagine this quiet separation, the diary disassociation glitch, as a gentle reminder that identity is fluid, layered, and ever-changing. The self you read about is both a part of you and apart from you, a chapter closed yet preserved. This paradox invites you to honor your past not as a fixed truth, but as a story evolving alongside the person you continue to become. Imagine yourself standing at a quiet crossroads, the sun low and casting long shadows over empty streets. You want to take a step, an honest, authentic move that feels true to who you are, but somehow you hesitate. The approval you seek is not within yourself, but in the eyes of others nearby. Yet, each person you look to waits quietly for you to go first. This is the gentle tension of the permission loop dilemma, a subtle dance where everyone waits, unsure who will grant the first permission to be real. Psychologists observe this delicate hesitation in many social situations. When authenticity feels risky, people often seek silent consent from their circle before revealing their true selves. The problem is that consent rarely arrives without action. It becomes a loop, a quiet standoff where genuine expression is delayed, caught between yearning and caution. Consider a medieval town square where neighbors watch each other, waiting for the first to break tradition or voice a new idea. The change could begin with one person's brave step, but without that spark, the old patterns hold firm. Each person's true self is reflected in the cautious eyes of others, echoing a shared fear of being the first to leap. As you listen now, feel the gentle weight of this loop. Recognize moments when you might have waited for permission, and imagine the freedom in giving yourself the first nod. In that quiet courage lies the breaking of the cycle. One step forward, releasing not only yourself, but others from the endless weight. Imagine yourself sitting quietly in a softly lit room, sensing the rise of an emotion, a fresh wave that seems new, unfamiliar, and intense. Yet beneath this surface feeling lies the emotional recycling trap, the subtle and persistent pattern of revisiting the same few core wounds over and over, cloaked in different names and moments. It's as if your heart is turning over old soil, planting seeds that bloom into familiar sorrows dressed in new colors. This pattern is gentle but pervasive. Across the span of a lifetime, the emotions that rise and fall often trace back to a handful of deep fractures, loss, rejection, or fear, that quietly shape how you react and remember. Imagine a gallery where the paintings change frames and titles, but the brushstrokes remain hauntingly alike. The rhythm of your emotional life echoes this repetition, cycling through grief, anger, or longing that feels distinct each time, but is rooted in the same well-worn pain. Throughout history, poets and philosophers have reflected on this recycling of feeling. Some have sought to break free through awareness or ritual, while others simply learn to carry their wounds with quiet acceptance. The emotional recycling trap gently teaches that true renewal requires not only feeling, but also release, a letting go of old stories so that new emotions might grow. Until then, you may find yourself revisiting familiar chambers of the heart, believing in new beginnings that quietly trace old patterns. Imagine yourself holding a familiar pen, the weight resting comfortably between your fingers. You begin to write, and the lines that flow from your hand are both recognizable and subtly changed. curves softened, strokes quicker or slower, letters forming in new patterns. This handwriting, once steady and certain, shifts over time, tracing not just words, but a silent story of transformation. Each change is a quiet signature of the person you once were and the one you have become. Your handwriting is more than ink on paper. It is a trace of your inner rhythm, a physical echo of your thoughts, emotions, and experiences. As life unfolds, the pen's dance shifts, sometimes with deliberate grace, other times with hesitant uncertainty. Imagine the countless moments when your hand moved across pages, the invisible marks of growth, loss, joy, and struggle inscribed in every curve. If the lines you write change, might your soul do the same? Perhaps the subtle shifts in your handwriting are the proof, silent evidence of a self continually evolving, rewriting itself with each breath, each day lived. The pen you no longer grip as before holds the quiet history of your becoming, a testament to the passage of time etched in flowing script. As you listen now, consider the gentle transformation written in the strokes of your hand, a reminder that change is not just seen, but felt, written, and lived in the quietest moments. Imagine yourself resting in a softly lit room, surrounded by warmth and quiet ease. The cushions embrace you gently, the familiar rhythms of life unfolding smoothly like a calm river. Comfort feels like a sanctuary, a velvet-lined cage that cradles you tenderly. Yet within this sanctuary lies a subtle paradox. The better life feels, the more the fear of losing it grows, quietly tightening its hold. As moments of peace and pleasure accumulate, imagine a shadow weaving itself between them, a cautious whisper urging you to hold on tightly, to protect what feels so precious. Each small joy becomes precious, fragile, like delicate glass ornaments displayed just out of reach. The mind begins to measure risk, avoiding anything that might disrupt the soft glow of comfort, even at the cost of growth or change. This fear of loss turns comfort into a gentle trap. Imagine walking through a garden surrounded by high hedges, beautiful but enclosing, limiting the paths you dare to take. The velvet lining soothes, yet it also confines, blurring the edges between safety and stasis. It is a quiet tension, a paradox where comfort offers peace and, at the same time, cages the spirit in invisible chains made of ease and fear. Imagine yourself standing quietly in a dimly lit room, the air thick with unspoken thoughts and feelings held just beneath the surface. You've learned to keep your emotions folded away, pressed tightly like delicate paper in a book's margin, holding them back to appear strong, steady, unshaken. This is the essence of the emotion compression error, the paradox where suppressing feelings only gathers pressure over time so that a single soft word or moment can release a sudden, overwhelming flood. Picture a medieval warrior returning from battle, hardened by scars and silence. In the village, he bears the weight of countless unspoken fears and griefs, keeping his pain locked inside beneath a calm exterior. Yet the smallest spark, a kind glance, a whispered name, can unravel years of restraint. The pressure, compressed and unseen, bursts forth not with thunder, but like a quiet river breaking through a dam. This paradox unfolds quietly in daily life. Imagine holding back frustration or sorrow through long days, stacking feelings in hidden chambers of the mind. Then, unexpectedly, a gentle comment, a memory, or a fleeting look becomes the key that opens the floodgates. The flood is not sudden chaos, but a slow, deep wellspring, raw, real, and long overdue. It reminds you that strength is not in endless holding, but in the soft release. As you listen now, feel the gentle rhythm of this paradox, the quiet build-up, the sudden flow, the healing that follows. The emotion compression error teaches that vulnerability is part of resilience, and that sometimes the softest words carry the greatest power to free what has long been held inside. Imagine yourself preparing for a conversation, rehearsing words and tones quietly in your mind. Each phrase plays like a gentle script, carefully tailored to the person you expect to hear you, the listener you've imagined perfectly. But when the moment comes, the real response arrives not as rehearsed, but unpredictable, diverging from the dialogue you once practiced. This is the subtle grip of the projected listener fallacy, the quiet trap of speaking to a shadow, expecting an echo that never quite matches. Psychologists note that we often project idealized versions of others, shaped by past interactions or our hopes for connection. This imagined listener guides our words, our tone, even our pauses. But real people are not scripts. They bring their own thoughts, feelings, and surprises, which can unsettle the neat conversation we crafted alone. Consider a medieval merchant negotiating in a bustling market, imagining his buyer's words in advance, only to find the true response colored by moods, distractions, or unexpected needs. The dance of dialogue is always alive, unpredictable, a living exchange rather than a rehearsed play. As you listen now, let this idea settle gently. Notice moments when your own words have met unexpected responses, and find comfort in the spontaneity of real connection. The true listener is never quite the one in your head, yet in that difference lies the richness of genuine conversation, the mystery of understanding that unfolds only when two selves meet. Imagine yourself leafing through an old photo album, each image bathed in soft, golden light, a moment frozen in time, warm and inviting. Yet beneath this glow lies the nostalgia fabrication effect, where the past you long for is less a faithful record and more a gentle invention. Your memory, like a skilled editor, has quietly removed the sharp edges and hidden the pain, weaving a comforting story that soothes the present, even if the truth was far more complex. This effect unfolds slowly, almost unnoticed, as you revisit memories in the quiet moments of reflection. A childhood afternoon might shimmer with laughter, while the struggles and disappointments fade into the background, lost beneath layers of softened light. Imagine how entire eras can become idealized in stories told by families or communities, passed down with the bruises smoothed over, until the past feels like a refuge rather than a challenge. Throughout history, this gentle fabrication has shaped how people relate to their own lives. It's a delicate balance, allowing the past to heal wounds by offering warmth, even if that warmth is borrowed from a softer version of reality. The nostalgia fabrication effect quietly reminds us that memory is not a mirror, but a canvas, painted with the colors we need to carry forward. In this way, missing times that never really existed becomes a quiet act of comfort, a gentle weaving of the past into a safer present. Imagine yourself stepping quietly into a room that has always felt like refuge, a place where light falls softly across familiar furniture, where the air carries the faint scent of comfort and stillness. This safe place is a sanctuary, a harbor from the storms of the outside world. Yet, beneath its calm surface, subtle echoes stir. Past versions of yourself, those who once trembled with fear, sank into sadness, or held their silence tightly, have left traces behind. Their presence lingers in the quiet corners, like whispers folded into the fabric of the space. These past selves are not ghosts, but the accumulated energy of moments lived deeply, times when safety was sought, but the heart still bore its wounds. Imagine the way a worn chair might hold the shape of those who sat before you, or how a window reflects not just the present light, but the shadows of many days past. Even in the safest spaces, these echoes remain, shaping the atmosphere with their quiet weight. This distortion is a reminder that safety is not a static place, but a journey through time and memory. The safe place carries the history of all its inhabitants, the brave and the broken alike. Imagine yourself sitting in stillness, feeling the presence of those past selves, honoring their struggles and knowing their energy is part of the foundation upon which your present peace rests. As you listen, allow this gentle awareness to deepen your sense of self, complex, layered, and resilient beyond measure. Imagine yourself sprinting across an endless plain under a vast sky, eyes fixed on a distant target shimmering just beyond reach. Each time you push forward, closing the gap with steady steps and focused breath, the target seems to drift farther away, stretching itself into the horizon like a mirage. This is the target mirage paradox. In life, goals often appear as shining beacons, guiding your path with purpose and promise. But imagine how, upon reaching one achievement, the sense of arrival slips quietly away, replaced by a new target appearing further on the road. The chase becomes a constant rhythm, the satisfaction of success mingling with the restless pull of what's next. Sometimes, the target feels less like a destination and more like bait, designed not to be caught, but to keep you running. This paradox holds a gentle tension. Imagine the steady cadence of your footsteps blending with the whispering wind, the journey itself becoming the landscape, while the goal remains a distant shimmer. The pursuit fuels motion, yet satisfaction remains elusive. It is a quiet dance between hope and fulfillment, a reminder that sometimes the target is not the prize, but the promise of the chase itself. Imagine yourself in a bustling village square, surrounded by faces seeking your help, your advice, your steady hand. Day after day, you solve problems, mend wounds, and untangle knots, not only of tasks, but of tangled lives. This is the rhythm of the fixer's world, where your identity grows wrapped tightly around others' struggles. Yet, beneath this noble role lies a quiet paradox. The fixer's identity loss, the gradual fading of the self you might have been without the weight of so many others' burdens. Picture a medieval healer, revered for her skill in curing ailments and soothing fears. Her days are filled with tending wounds and offering comfort, but in the quiet moments, she wonders, who am I beneath this mantle? The version of herself untouched by others' troubles feels like a distant shadow, a stranger's face glimpsed in a passing reflection. The healer's identity becomes woven so deeply into her role that the idea of a self without problems to solve is almost unimaginable. This paradox unfolds softly in everyday life. You become a shelter for friends and family, a fixer of broken things and broken days. The more you give, the less space remains to know what truly belongs to you alone. Your own hopes and needs blur beneath the constant flow of others' demands. The version of yourself that is free, unburdened by fixing, is slowly lost to time, like a book misplaced on a crowded shelf. As you listen now, imagine the quiet tension of the fixer's identity loss, a life shaped by generosity, shadowed by the loss of self. This paradox gently reminds us to seek balance, to care deeply for others while remembering the importance of the self beneath. Because sometimes, to help others best, we must first find the face we have forgotten in the mirror. Imagine yourself standing quietly in a crowded marketplace, the chatter swirling around you like a river flowing fast and deep. Inside, your mind feels unusually clear, thoughts sharp, perceptions vivid, a profound sense of who you truly are settling gently like sunlight through morning mist. But as this clarity deepens, something subtle shifts. The world outside seems more confusing, more rigid, as if built for people who move through life in blurred routines and scripted roles. This is the quiet tension of the clarity shatter problem, the paradox where self-understanding grows, but functioning within everyday life becomes unexpectedly harder. Psychologists observe that when people awaken to deeper clarity about their values, desires, or flaws, they often feel isolated. The social world is tuned to habits, conventions, and half-understood expectations. Those who see themselves with stark precision may find familiar scripts inadequate, conversations shallow, and interactions tiring. The clearer your inner vision, the more the everyday feels misaligned, even alien. Imagine a medieval philosopher who uncovers profound truths about existence but lives among villagers bound by tradition and custom. Their insight is precious, yet burdensome, making simple exchanges fraught with unseen barriers. The clarity that enriches the soul also fractures connection. As you listen now, let this tension rest gently in your mind. Recognize that clarity is a gift wrapped in challenge, a beacon that can illuminate your path but also cast shadows on the world you navigate. In this delicate balance lies the quiet journey of becoming truly yourself amidst a world built for many others. Imagine yourself seated by a softly glowing window, the world beyond framed in quiet hues of dusk or dawn. Your eyes trace the shifting shapes outside, the slow dance of leaves, the distant movement of passers-by, while your mind reaches for something just beyond reach. The window-watching loop unfolds here, a gentle, endless cycle where the act of searching becomes its own quiet purpose, and what you seek remains ever elusive, perhaps secondary to the longing itself. This loop is familiar across time and place. Writers, thinkers, and dreamers have all sat by windows, gazing outward with the hope that something unseen will reveal meaning or direction. Imagine the subtle rhythm of breath and blink, the steady pulse of moments passing in stillness. The outside world becomes a mirror for the restless mind, reflecting desires that shift shape but rarely settle. History whispers of this paradox in poems and paintings, figures caught between expectation and acceptance, forever watching yet never arriving. In your own life, this loop may surface in quiet pauses, when searching is less about finding and more about holding space for possibility. The window-watching loop gently reminds you that sometimes the longing to search is itself the destination, a soft embrace of the unknown that quietly carries you forward, one glance at a time. Imagine yourself caught in the sudden rise of a strong emotion, like a fever that surges without warning, heating the body and mind. The pulse quickens, thoughts race, and a rush of intensity floods every sense. In this moment, it feels as though the feeling will never ease, as though the heat will consume you entirely. But just like a fever, emotions have their own natural rhythm, a peak and a fall, that unfolds quietly, without need for control or resistance. Throughout history, people have faced these waves of feeling, fear, anger, sadness, each surging with its own fierce energy before gradually subsiding. Imagine the slow cooling after a fever, the relief when the heat breaks, and calm returns. Yet, in the midst of the spike, it is easy to panic, to believe the intensity will last forever, to grasp for escape or control. This panic, though understandable, only tightens the grip, making the fever seem more unbearable. Consider now the gentle reminder that emotions are not permanent states, but cycles, rising, cresting, and breaking in time. Just as a fever signals the body's fight to heal, strong emotions signal shifts within us, and eventually, they ease. Imagine yourself riding the wave, trusting that the peak will pass and the calm will return, even if unseen in the moment. As you listen now, breathe in this quiet truth. No matter how fierce the feeling, it will break on its own, inviting peace in the curve's gentle descent. Imagine yourself seated quietly in a softly lit room, the weight of hardship pressing gently but persistently against your spirit. Around you, whispers urge constant thankfulness, a steady chant echoing through culture and time. Be grateful, they say, no matter what. Yet beneath this well-meaning advice lies a complex tension, the gratitude-guilt collision. Picture moments when suffering clings tightly, loss, disappointment, loneliness, feelings that resist easy comfort. In these times, forced gratitude can feel like a heavy mask, a polite garment draped over raw grief. Imagine wrapping sorrow in the softest fabric, yet still feeling the ache beneath, muffled but present. Gratitude, when compelled, may quiet pain without healing it, creating a silent dissonance between what is felt and what is expressed. This collision stirs a quiet paradox. The urge to find light amid darkness is natural and healing, but when gratitude becomes an obligation, it risks silencing genuine emotion. Imagine the gentle unfolding of acceptance, where sorrow and thankfulness coexist, not as opposites, but as threads woven together in the tapestry of human experience. In this balance lies a deeper truth. Gratitude need not erase grief to hold space for it. Imagine yourself standing before a shelf lined with jars, each carefully labeled, kind, strong, quiet. Words meant to capture the essence within. You reach for one, a jar labeled with a trait that everyone sees first. Yet as you lift it, you realize the jar is far too small to hold the full complexity inside. This is the jar label error, the quiet paradox where you identify yourself by your most visible traits, sealing away vast parts of who you are that don't quite fit the box you were handed. Picture a medieval artisan, known throughout the village as the carpenter, whose skill shapes every plank and beam in the town. Yet beyond the workshop, this carpenter harbors dreams of poetry, moments of laughter, and quiet fears never spoken aloud. The village sees only the label, the craftsman's hands and work, while the deeper self remains tucked away, like hidden threads woven beneath a tapestry. This paradox unfolds gently in everyday life. You might be called the leader, the thinker, or the shy one, and these labels become shields or prisons. They shape how others treat you and how you see yourself, yet vast parts, your passions, contradictions, and silent struggles, stay sealed inside, unseen and unclaimed. The jar holds only a fraction, while the rest waits patiently beyond the label. As you listen now, imagine the delicate tension of the jar label error, a life partially known, partially hidden. This paradox softly invites you to remember that no label can capture the fullness of who you are. You are more than any jar can hold, an ever-unfolding story beyond the simple words on the shelf. Characters with spaces. 149. Imagine yourself sitting quietly in a sunlit room, the soft hum of distant life filtering through the window. Inside your mind, a voice speaks clearly, an endless stream of thoughts, judgments, and stories that feel unmistakably real. You trust this inner monologue as truth, a steady guide through the swirling currents of daily life. Yet, what if this voice is not the unshakable truth you believe, but something else entirely? Something shaped by the loudest memories, dressed carefully in the best disguise. This is the subtle nature of the inner monologue distortion. Psychologists explain that our inner voice often echoes not reality, but the most persistent or emotionally charged memories. These memories, like actors, wear convincing masks, voices of doubt, fear, or past failure that command attention and shape perception. Because they are familiar and repeated, they masquerade as objective truth, steering decisions and emotions under the illusion of certainty. Imagine a medieval scribe haunted by the memory of a critical failure, replaying harsh self-judgments that drown out gentler truths. Or a traveler recalling moments of loss, their inner voice weaving those shadows into every new thought. The mind, craving coherence, stitches these distorted echoes into a continuous narrative, blurring lines between fact and feeling. As you listen now, gently observe your own inner voice, not as absolute truth, but as a complex chorus shaped by memory and emotion. In this awareness lies freedom, the chance to question, to soften, and to choose which voices deserve to guide you through your unfolding story. Imagine yourself holding a worn, detailed map, its creases softened by time, its edges frayed from countless folds. This map traces the paths you've traveled, moments of triumph, missteps, and the shadows of flaws that mark your journey. Yet the map isn't place. A quiet paradox reminds you that the map you carry is not the territory itself. The flaws you have memorized, revisited like familiar landmarks, risk becoming mistaken for your true self rather than simply markers of where you have been. Throughout history, travelers and explorers have grappled with this confusion. Maps guide but do not define. They outline terrain but cannot capture the full richness of the land. In the same way, your mind can fixate on imperfections, each remembered mistake, each regret, as though they were the essence of your being. Imagine the weight of carrying these flaws as if they were permanent fixtures, rather than signposts on a larger journey still unfolding. This illusion gently shapes how you see yourself and how you move forward. The map may highlight rough terrain, but beyond it lies open landscape yet to be discovered. The map isn't place invites a softer perspective, that flaws are not your identity, but part of the story you have traveled. Recognizing this allows you to fold the map gently, step beyond its edges, and explore the vast terrain of who you truly are beneath the remembered marks. Imagine yourself waiting by a softly glowing window, your mind tracing words meant to be spoken, messages carried on invisible currents towards someone you care about. You listen for a response, a sign, a glance, a whispered reply, but all that meets you is silence. In these quiet moments, it is easy to interpret the stillness as rejection, a closing of doors you hoped would open. Yet sometimes, this silence is not a refusal, but a gap, a message lost before it could ever arrive. Throughout life, countless thoughts and feelings set out like paper boats on a river, carried by currents unseen. Some reach their destination, others falter in the flow, never quite making it to shore. Imagine the fragile threads of communication stretching between people, sometimes frayed by distance, distracted minds, or moments when words fail to cross the space between hearts. The silence you feel is not always a choice or a judgment. It is often a quiet absence, an unreceived message lingering somewhere between sender and receiver. Consider how many times you've waited for answers that never came, not because they were denied, but because they were never delivered. Imagine releasing the weight of assumed rejection and opening space for this gentler possibility, that sometimes silence is simply the echo of a message that never reached its home. As you listen now, allow this thought to soften your heart. The silence you face may hold no refusal, only a quiet mystery waiting to unfold. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of an old playground, the swings swaying slowly in the breeze, their creak soft and familiar. The scent of sun-warmed grass and worn wood rises around you, stirring memories long tucked away. As you step closer, those memories rush in like a sudden tide, laughter, scraped knees, whispered secrets, but the joy they once held feels distant, almost foreign, like stepping into a stranger's dream. This is the playground regression effect. Returning to a place from childhood can flood the mind with vivid scenes, yet the emotions attached to those moments sometimes fail to resonate fully. Imagine recalling the thrill of a first race or the comfort of a friend's smile, but sensing an invisible barrier between then and now. The mind remembers fragments, colors, sounds, yet the feelings, the pure, unfiltered joy, seem just out of reach, replaced by a quiet melancholy or a wistful curiosity. This gentle paradox reveals how time reshapes experience. The playground remains, unchanged and waiting, but your inner world has moved forward, layered with years of growth and change. Imagine walking among familiar shadows, visiting a place that once was home, but now feels like a faded echo, a tender reminder that some joys belong only to a time long past, accessible only through the delicate lens of memory. Imagine yourself stepping into a pristine room where every surface gleams softly under gentle light. The air is crisp, untouched, and perfectly arranged, the kind of space where calm seems woven into the very walls. Yet, as you pause in this spotless order, you might notice a quiet contradiction stirring within, a restless swirl of thoughts, emotions, and doubts that no amount of external tidiness can quiet. This is the clean room dissonance, the paradox where the calm of your surroundings contrasts sharply with the chaos inside. Picture a medieval scholar, surrounded by neatly stacked scrolls and polished instruments, the epitome of order in the bustling castle library. Outside, the world rages with uncertainty and conflict, but within these walls, everything is meticulously arranged. Still, despite the outward calm, the scholar's mind wrestles with fears, questions, and unrest, a tempest unseen by the orderly room. The paradox is that external neatness cannot silence the internal storms. This tension unfolds gently in everyday life. You might keep your desk spotless, your calendar precise, your schedule locked tight, hoping the structure will soothe the tangled thoughts inside. Yet beneath the surface, emotions ripple like hidden currents. Reminders that order around you doesn't always mean peace within. The clean room becomes a silent stage where inner dissonance plays out in quiet contrast. As you listen now, imagine this delicate dance, the stillness of the room against the storm inside. The clean room dissonance invites you to recognize that true calm begins not with perfect surroundings, but with gentle acceptance of the complexity within. Because sometimes, the quietest rooms hold the loudest storms, and peace is found not in silence, but in embracing both order and chaos together. Imagine yourself standing before a mirror in a quiet room, watching not just your reflection, but the version of yourself you show the world. The face you present in conversations, on screens, in fleeting glances. This version, crafted and repeated, begins to take on a life of its own. Psychologists call this the broadcast identity phenomenon, the subtle shaping of who you are by the persona you most frequently transmit, even when that persona slowly erodes the deeper, authentic self beneath. In daily life, you select which traits to highlight, which stories to tell, and which emotions to share. Over time, these choices build a broadcast identity, a self-image shaped more by performance than by inner truth. The world responds to this version, reinforcing its presence, encouraging repetition. Yet this repeated projection can become a quiet danger. Like a mask fused to your skin, it can suffocate parts of your true nature, dull your deeper feelings, and silence your authentic voice. Consider a medieval bard, famed for his joyful tales, who hides his sorrow behind every song, gradually losing touch with the self beneath the performance. Or a scholar who publishes confident words while privately doubting, each public success pushing the real self further into shadow. As you listen now, reflect gently on your own broadcast identity. Notice how the version you show shapes not only others' perceptions, but your own becoming. In that quiet reflection lies a choice: to continue the performance or to gently reclaim the true self waiting patiently beneath the spotlight. Imagine yourself standing before a vast, gleaming scale, its surface cold and precise. This scale measures only what is visible: the numbers, the weight, the surface details easily counted and compared. Yet beneath and beyond this measurement lies a quiet truth, the metric trap dilemma. By focusing solely on what can be seen, quantified, or scored, the unseen parts of yourself, the subtle emotions, hidden strengths, and silent struggles, begin to fade, withering quietly without recognition. Throughout history, societies have prized measurable achievements, wealth, titles, accomplishments. These visible marks became the currency of worth, while inner landscapes remained neglected. Imagine a garden where only the tallest, brightest flowers receive water and light, while the delicate roots and shade-loving plants struggle in silence. The rhythm of this dilemma is persistent, shaping how you view yourself and others through a narrow lens of observable traits. Yet the richest parts of being often resist measurement: empathy, resilience, creativity. These live in shadows beyond scales and scores. The metric trap dilemma gently reminds you that true understanding requires looking beyond the visible, tending to the unseen with quiet care. Only then can the whole self flourish, both the measured and the hidden, growing together in balance and grace. Imagine yourself holding a glowing screen, fingertips tracing familiar paths through endless feeds of images and words. Each swipe promises something new: a story, a face, a glimpse beyond your world. Yet, beneath the surface, the novelty folds back into itself, looping quietly through patterns you've seen before. The carefully curated bubbles you inhabit filter what you see, offering endless options that echo the same familiar shapes and colors. This is the paradox of choice in a digital age, boundless possibility that circles back to sameness. Across time and cultures, people have sought new experiences to break the dullness of routine, craving fresh sights and sounds. Yet today, algorithms craft personalized worlds designed to keep you comfortable, wrapping you in a gentle loop where novelty feels safe, predictable, and just familiar enough. Imagine the rhythm of scrolling, one image after another, each tailored to your tastes, reinforcing preferences while quietly narrowing horizons. This cycle can lull the mind into a quiet acceptance, mistaking curated sameness for freedom. Imagine yourself pausing, realizing the choices presented are often shaped by invisible hands, steering you back to what you already know. The search for novelty continues, but the path is a circle, and the bubble expands only so far before turning inward again. As you listen now, consider the gentle invitation to look beyond the loop, to notice where true novelty might lie, in the unexpected, the unfiltered, and the moments beyond the screen's edge. Imagine yourself sitting quietly before a glowing screen, crafting an image, each word chosen, every photo selected, to create a version of yourself meant for others to see. This carefully curated avatar moves through the digital world with polished confidence, receiving likes, comments, and attention that ripple like gentle waves across a still lake. Yet beneath the surface, a quiet question stirs. When this version is loved, what does it mean for the real you? In the vastness of online spaces, identities become performances shaped by expectation and desire. Imagine the subtle adjustments made to fit in, to be admired, to be understood, gestures repeated until the line between the authentic self and the crafted persona begins to blur. This avatar moves confidently in digital light, while the deeper imperfect self waits in shadow, sometimes wondering if it too will ever be seen or loved without disguise. This is the avatar identity error, a gentle, haunting paradox where connection comes wrapped in layers of curation. Imagine the warmth of acceptance, tinged with a quiet loneliness, as the applause belongs to a reflection carefully constructed rather than the whole person beneath. It is a delicate dance between presence and performance, a search for belonging that asks, can love reach beyond the avatar to touch the real you? Imagine yourself sitting alone in a quiet room, the soft hum of stillness surrounding you, yet inside your mind, a storm brews, not of thunder or lightning, but of endless thoughts circling and spinning, each one analyzed and reanalyzed with careful precision. This is the overthinking silence paradox, the curious tension where you overanalyze to feel in control, yet this mental noise drowns out the quiet intuition whispering the truth beneath it all. Picture a medieval scholar poring over ancient texts, seeking answers through logic and reason. Hours pass as every word is scrutinized, every theory debated. Yet, sometimes, the deepest insights come not from meticulous thought, but from a fleeting sense, a sudden clarity felt in moments of stillness. The scholar's mind, cluttered with analysis, risks missing these subtle whispers, lost in the very noise meant to bring understanding. This paradox quietly shapes everyday moments. You may find yourself trapped in loops of what if and why, dissecting choices long made, trying to control every outcome. But in this flood of thoughts, the gentle voice of intuition, the quiet knowing that guides without words, is drowned. The mind's endless chatter becomes a barrier rather than a bridge. As you listen now, feel the pull between thought and silence, control and surrender. The overthinking silence. Paradox invites you to soften the noise, to create space where intuition can breathe and speak. Sometimes, true wisdom arises not from endless analysis, but from the quiet trust that lives beneath the storm of thought. Imagine yourself waking to the steady tick of a clock, the rhythm of minutes and hours guiding your day with precise order. This clock time, Chronos, is the framework of schedules, deadlines, and routines, a reliable pulse moving forward without pause. Yet beneath this structured beat flows another kind of time, Kairos, the emotional time where meaning blooms in moments of significance, when life feels full, quiet, or profound. The Chronos-Kairos collision arises because these two times rarely align perfectly, creating a subtle tension at the heart of your experience. Psychologists observe that while Chronos marches steadily on, Kairos unfolds irregularly, sometimes in brief flashes of joy, sorrow, or insight that defy the clock's logic. You may sit at your desk counting hours, yet feel emotionally elsewhere, waiting for a kairotic moment that resists scheduling. This disconnect can create restlessness, as if the soul's own clock runs to a different rhythm, invisible yet deeply felt. Picture a medieval farmer, bound to the sun's course for work, but sensing life's true richness in unexpected pauses, the brief smile of a child, the sudden bloom of a flower, kairotic moments slipping between the measured beats of daily toil. Or a scholar poring over texts by candlelight, chasing knowledge with Chronos while Kairos whispers insight in sudden inspiration. As you listen now, let this collision settle softly in your mind. Feel the steady tick of Chronos alongside the elusive flow of Kairos, and find peace in the dance between measured time and meaningful time, a rhythm uniquely your own. Imagine yourself sitting quietly in a dimly lit room, a familiar melody drifting softly from the speakers. That one song begins to play. Notes weaving through the air like threads, pulling you gently backward in time. The replayed song. Regression unfolds here, a bittersweet return to moments long past, where memory and feeling intertwine, carrying you back to places both comforting and tenderly painful. Each replay revives emotions once buried, painting old scenes with fresh color. Yet beneath this nostalgia lies a quiet paradox. While the song soothes, it also quietly reopens wounds you thought had softened, weaving them deeper into your heart with every familiar chorus. Imagine a scar that feels both like protection and ache, its edges traced again and again by the melody's touch. This phenomenon is known to musicians, therapists, and dreamers alike. Music becomes a bridge to selves you once were, but it can also hold you in cycles of remembrance, where healing and pain coexist. The replayed song. Regression gently reminds us that the comforts of memory carry shadows, that sometimes the act of returning is also a binding, a soft tether to the past that asks for both tenderness and release. Imagine yourself standing before a high wall, built slowly over years, layer upon layer of bricks forged from moments of hurt, fear, and unanswered questions. This wall feels solid and protective, a barrier meant to keep others at a safe distance. But unlike walls that block out the world, some emotional walls do something different. They reflect what lies within, sending your own pain back to you, magnified and louder than before. When you raise these walls, it is often to shield your heart from further harm. Yet, the very act of defense can turn inward, bouncing your struggles back like echoes in a canyon. Imagine the way a stone cast against a cliff returns to your hand, heavier than when you threw it. The hurt you hope to contain instead grows, reverberating in silence, filling the spaces you once hoped to protect. Across lives and stories, people build these walls unconsciously, not to shut others out, but to contain their own wounds. Yet in doing so, they find themselves trapped in a reflection of their pain, unable to see beyond the barrier to the world on the other side. Imagine standing there now, feeling the weight of that echoed pain, and slowly beginning to lower the wall, not to expose vulnerability, but to soften the reflection, allowing healing light to pass through. As you listen, consider the gentle truth that sometimes the hardest walls are those that mirror our own hearts, inviting us to look inward and find the path beyond. Imagine yourself holding a carefully folded receipt, its creases worn from countless fingers tracing the numbers and words printed there. This small slip of paper promises proof, evidence that something was earned, bought, or achieved. Yet beyond this fragile token lies a quiet truth. True worth rarely offers such clear confirmation. This is the receipt of worth error. In many moments of life, you may find yourself searching for tangible signs, certificates, praise, accomplishments that validate your value. Imagine working tirelessly, awaiting recognition or reward, only to discover that the measure of your true worth eludes these markers. Like a river that flows unseen beneath frozen ice, your value runs deep, often invisible, to the eyes that seek proof. This paradox invites a gentle reflection. While society hands out receipts for deeds and purchases, the heart knows a different story. Imagine the quiet moments of kindness given without expectation, courage shown in silence, or love offered without strings. These acts hold worth beyond any printed confirmation. True value, then, is a quiet presence, felt, lived, and known without ever needing to be proven or recorded. Imagine yourself preparing for a grand performance, rehearsing every word, every gesture with meticulous care. You practice authenticity itself, how to be genuine, how to speak your truth, studying it like a script written by others. Yet, paradoxically, the more you focus on performing authenticity, the more it slips away, leaving you feeling like an actor lost behind the mask. This is the overlearning authenticity. Drop. The subtle irony that the harder you try to be real, the less real it feels. Picture a medieval storyteller crafting tales meant to capture the hearts of the village. She studies ancient customs, perfects her tone, and mimics gestures learned from masters before her. But in the effort to be authentic, the spontaneity fades, replaced by rehearsed rhythms and expected lines. The storyteller's voice, once vibrant and free, becomes a carefully worn costume, familiar yet somehow distant. This paradox whispers through everyday moments. You might read books on self-expression, attend workshops, or analyze your feelings endlessly, all to be yourself. But in this pursuit, the natural flow of authenticity can become strained, tangled in expectations and overthought gestures. What was once effortless now feels staged, as if you're trying to recapture a feeling by following a blueprint. As you listen now, imagine this delicate tension, the striving for realness that ironically builds walls around it. The overlearning authenticity. Drop invites you to release the need for perfect authenticity and instead to embrace the imperfect, unplanned moments where true selfhood quietly blooms. Because sometimes, authenticity is less about effort and more about surrendering to the flow of being. Imagine yourself sitting at an old wooden table, its surface worn smooth by years of use. Beneath one corner, a small drawer waits, filled with forgotten scraps, notes, trinkets, loose coins, things deemed too insignificant or too tangled to sort right now. This is like the trash drawer self, where your mind quietly stores memories that don't fit neatly into daily life. Out of sight, yes, but rattling softly whenever someone or something bumps the table. Psychologists find that people often tuck away certain memories, awkward moments, regrets, or emotions too complex to face, into mental junk drawers. These memories don't vanish. They linger in the background, sometimes surfacing unexpectedly as fleeting emotions, sudden anxieties, or vague nostalgia. Though hidden, their presence shapes your feelings and reactions in ways you might barely notice. Imagine a medieval peasant who carries the weight of unspoken losses tucked deep inside, or a scholar who silently battles past failures that clutter the mind like forgotten papers in a drawer. Their lives continue, but these stored fragments add texture and shadow, a quiet undercurrent beneath everyday thought. As you listen now, allow yourself to feel the subtle rattle of your own mental junk drawer. Notice the memories you've tucked away, not to be forgotten, but preserved in quiet corners. In this gentle awareness, find compassion for the parts of yourself hidden from view, still softly shaping your story. Imagine yourself gazing into a calm pool of water, seeking a flawless reflection, a version of yourself untouched by mistakes or regrets. This image is the heart of the purity distortion loop, the quiet yearning for perfection that conceals an essential paradox. While you long for a self without error, this imagined purity is incomplete, lacking the depth and tenderness that arise from imperfection and growth. Throughout history, thinkers and poets have explored this tension. The ideal of flawlessness shines brightly but remains distant, like a star whose light touches but never fully warms. Imagine a sculptor shaping marble. A perfect surface may catch the eye, but the subtle imperfections, the curves, the textures, give the statue its soul. Similarly, the self that has stumbled, learned, and healed carries a richness a flawless version could never know. This loop gently shapes how you relate to yourself. The more you seek purity, the more you risk overlooking the beauty born from error, the capacity to love deeply, to forgive, and to connect. The purity distortion loop reminds you that love, in its fullest form, grows not in perfection, but in the tender soil of imperfection, where depth and compassion quietly take root and blossom. Imagine yourself standing beneath the soft glow of the moon, its silver light illuminating just one gentle curve of its surface. From where you stand, this bright crescent seems the whole, shining clearly in the night sky, serene and constant. Yet beyond that visible curve lies a vast, dark side, hidden in shadow, quietly orbiting in silence. This is much like how others see you, a single phase, a single face reflected back, while the rest remains unseen. People often assume that what is shown is all there is, that the parts you reveal define your entirety. But like the moon's cycles, your identity moves through phases, some bright and visible, others hidden and private. Imagine the silent darkness, the moments of solitude, struggle, and quiet growth that unfold away from any gaze. These shadows are not voids, but essential parts of the whole, shaping the light that others glimpse. Throughout life, this cycle repeats, the bright side displayed for the world, the dark side held close, orbiting silently. Imagine the tension of living in this duality, the yearning to be fully known, yet the need to guard certain parts. The moon teaches us that fullness comes in phases, in both light and shadow, and that unseen depths are not lesser, but integral. As you listen now, consider the gentle truth that your whole self, light and dark, is always present, even when only part of it is visible to the world. Imagine yourself placed gently inside a small, neatly labeled box, its edges crisp, the words on the surface clear and unchanging. From this moment, others see only the label, a simple word or phrase that stands in for the complex story inside. Slowly, the rich, unfolding sentence that is you becomes compressed into shorthand, a category, a type, a familiar tag. This is the labeled box trap. Across daily life, people instinctively sort the world into manageable pieces. Imagine how friends, colleagues, or strangers glance at you and quickly assign a label, a profession, a personality trait, a past mistake. These labels offer comfort and clarity, but at a quiet cost. The fullness of your experiences, your contradictions, your growth, these fade into the background, hidden beneath the weight of expectation tied to the name on the box. This gentle paradox shapes how you are known and how you know yourself. Imagine the slow narrowing of identity from a vast and shifting story into a single, fixed line. The label becomes a cage, not of bars, but of assumptions, limiting the view and silencing the nuances. It is a quiet reminder. Once categorized, you risk losing the freedom to be fully seen as the whole, unfolding sentence you truly are. Imagine yourself standing in a quiet kitchen, the gentle aroma of herbs and spices filling the air. You reach instinctively for the boldest flavors, pepper, chili, exotic blends, seeking to awaken your senses, to break the dullness of routine. This is the spice familiarity fallacy. The paradox where you sprinkle chaos into your life just to feel alive, only to find that when peace arrives, it tastes surprisingly bland and unfamiliar. Picture a medieval banquet hall, where feasts are lavish and unpredictable. Guests crave variety, unexpected spices, sudden bursts of flavor, because monotony dulls even the richest dishes. Yet, after the excitement fades, the simplest meal, bread and fresh water, can feel oddly unsatisfying, its quietness mistaken for emptiness. The contrast makes calm seem less desirable, even though it offers a subtle nourishment the chaos can never provide. This paradox plays out in everyday life. You might seek drama, surprises, or conflicts to escape boredom, chasing the rush of unpredictability. But when moments of stillness come, they feel flat, like a spice you've forgotten how to taste. Peace becomes a strange flavor, too mild, too quiet, until you relearn its richness through patience and presence. As you listen now, imagine this delicate dance, the hunger for spice, the yearning for calm. The spice familiarity fallacy invites you to savor both chaos and peace, to recognize that each has its place on the palette of life. Sometimes, the deepest satisfaction comes not from constant flavor, but from the quiet appreciation of simplicity itself. Imagine yourself standing still in a quiet room, the air perfectly still, yet feeling a subtle pull, as if you are moving forward, though nothing around you shifts. This sensation captures the windless motion illusion, the feeling of motion not in your body or surroundings, but in your emotions, where yesterday's weight drags silently across today. Psychologists describe emotional inertia as the lingering pull of past feelings, unresolved thoughts, and memories that continue to influence your mood and actions long after the moments have passed. Though outwardly still, your inner world carries momentum, like a ship gliding on calm waters, yet propelled by unseen currents beneath the surface. Imagine a medieval traveler resting beneath an ancient tree, body at rest, but mind heavy with the burdens of past journeys, regrets, hopes, or losses that tug quietly at the edges of each new day. The windless motion feels like progress, yet it's the gentle echo of what came before, moving you without visible change. As you listen now, sense this illusion within yourself, the weight of yesterday's emotions sliding softly into today's moments. Let this awareness bring gentle peace, knowing that stillness and motion can coexist, and that healing comes as the currents slowly settle. Imagine yourself standing before a block of stone, chisel in hand, carefully shaping the rough edges to reveal a smooth, polished form. This act mirrors the carved self-compression, the subtle, ongoing process of trimming parts of yourself to fit the expectations of others, to appear more palatable, more acceptable. Yet, with each careful stroke, the fragments you remove are often the truest pieces of who you are, the raw edges that hold your uniqueness, your depth, and your quiet strength. Throughout history, people have shaped their identities like sculptors shaping stone, molding themselves to fit social norms, roles, or ideals. Imagine the tension between the polished statue admired by many and the hidden shards discarded into the dust, each fragment a vital part of the original form, essential to its full expression. The rhythm of this process unfolds gently but persistently, a dance between self-expression and self-erasure. The carved self-compression quietly teaches that in the effort to be accepted, you may lose parts of yourself that matter most. It invites a deeper awareness that true authenticity often lies not in smooth surfaces, but in the jagged, imperfect fragments you've been tempted to discard. Embracing these pieces allows you to stand whole, a sculpture not just of polished stone, but of rich, enduring character. Imagine yourself standing at a crossroads, the familiar path behind you well-worn and clear beneath your feet. For years, this track has guided your steps, predictable, steady, safe. But now, your gaze shifts toward a new route, one less traveled, mysterious, and unmapped. The idea of change stirs a flicker of hope within you, a whisper of possibility beyond the known. Yet, the moment you try to step off the familiar track, a sudden stillness grips you, a deep fear of the unknown that freezes your next move. This paralysis is common, born from the mind's craving for certainty and safety. Imagine the tension between the desire for growth and the comfort of routine, like a train hesitating before switching rails in a dark tunnel. Without a clear map or visible signs, every step forward feels like stepping into a void, where missteps could lead to unseen dangers or lost direction. Throughout history, countless journeys have begun with this very hesitation. Dreams paused by the silence of uncertainty, plans stalled by the fear of uncharted territory. Imagine yourself caught in this quiet struggle, the weight of potential pulling you forward even as the absence of a map holds you back. As you listen now, consider the gentle truth that sometimes the first step into the unknown is not about having a map, but about trusting your ability to find the way. In the stillness of paralysis lies the possibility of a new path waiting to unfold. Imagine yourself sending a message through an old-fashioned fax machine, page after page transmitted, each copy fading slightly, the edges blurring with every pass. At first, the message is clear and sharp, but as copies multiply, details slip away, and the original meaning softens into a pale echo. This is the faxed identity paradox. In life, you may find yourself repeating certain stories, phrases, or roles over and over, messages crafted carefully to present who you are to the world. Imagine the daily rehearsals of identity, the jokes you tell, the opinions you voice, the way you describe yourself. Each repetition reinforces the image, yet also chips away at its freshness. Over time, the original you, the source of these expressions, can become lost beneath layers of performance and expectation. This paradox whispers a gentle caution. Imagine looking into a mirror that reflects not your true face, but a faded photocopy of a photocopy, until even you struggle to recognize the person staring back. The identity you send out becomes both familiar and strange, a message repeated so often that its origin blurs. It is a quiet invitation to pause, to seek the original beneath the echoes, and remember who you truly are beyond the copies. Imagine yourself reaching out to touch a familiar place from your past, a childhood home, an old friend's face, a moment you wish you could live again. You long to press pause, to return to a save point where life felt simpler, safer, or more certain. But life offers no such reset button. Instead, it presents layered memory echoes, fragments of who you once were, overlapping and shifting beneath the surface. This is the save point regression, the paradox that trying to return to a past self reveals only a complex, layered mosaic of memory, never a perfect rewind. Picture a medieval traveler poring over ancient maps, searching for a path back to a village lost to time. No matter how closely he studies the roads, the village has changed, its streets moved, its people altered. Similarly, your past self exists only in echoes, shaped by memories that shift with each recall. The version you seek is both there and not there, a reflection refracted through years of experience. This paradox quietly unfolds in everyday moments. You might revisit old journals, reread letters, or think longingly of the way things were, hoping to reclaim a feeling or clarity lost to time. Yet each return stirs new shadows, memories colored by who you are now, by the layers added since then. The past isn't a save point to reload, but a palimpsest, written and rewritten by the passage of life. As you listen now, imagine the gentle complexity of the save point regression, a dance between memory and identity, between longing and acceptance. This paradox invites you to embrace the fluidity of self, knowing that though you cannot return, you carry every version of you, layered within, moving always forward.
Imagine yourself reaching out to touch a familiar place from your past, a childhood home, an old friend's face, a moment you wish you could live again. You long to press pause, to return to a save point where life felt simpler, safer, or more certain. But life offers no such reset button. Instead, It presents layered memory echoes, fragments of who you once were, overlapping and shifting beneath the surface. This is the save point regression, the paradox that trying to return to a past self reveals only a complex, layered mosaic of memory, never a perfect rewind. Picture a medieval traveler poring over ancient maps, searching for a path back to a village lost to time. No matter how closely he studies the roads, the village has changed, its streets moved, its people altered. Similarly, your past self exists only in echoes, shaped by memories that shift with each recall. The version you seek is both there and not there, a reflection refracted through years of experience. This paradox quietly unfolds in everyday moments. You might revisit old journals, reread letters, or think longingly of the way things were, hoping to reclaim a feeling or clarity lost to time. Yet, each return stirs new shadows, memories colored by who you are now, by the layers added since then. The past isn't a save point to reload, but a palimpsest, written and rewritten by the passage of life. As you listen now, imagine the gentle complexity of the save point regression, a dance between memory and identity, between longing and acceptance. This paradox invites you to embrace the fluidity of self, knowing that though you cannot return, you carry every version of you, layered within, moving always forward.